Maya's hands were still shaking from the close call when she heard the crying. She'd barely made it out of the diner before her manager could dock her pay for the broken plates. The alpha customer had grabbed her wrist too hard when she tried to refill his coffee, and her omega reflexes had kicked in, fight or flight. The plates had paid the price. Now, 20 minutes later, she was cutting through Riverside Park with Emma sleeping against her shoulder, trying to get home before her daughter woke up cranky and hungry. The upscale park wasn't meant for people like them, but it was the fastest route to their crumbling apartment building. That's when she heard it. Soft, heartbroken sobbing coming from behind the ornate fountain. Maya's steps slowed. Every instinct screamed at her to keep walking. She had her own problems. Emma needed dinner, and their cupboards were nearly bare. She had exactly $43 to last until Friday, and that was 3 days away. But the crying tugged at something deep in her chest. Her omega nature, the part of her that couldn't ignore a child in distress. She found him huddled on a marble bench, a little boy maybe 6 years old. His clothes were expensive, designer jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than Maya made in a week. Dark hair fell across his forehead as he scrubbed at his eyes with small fists. "Hey there," Maya said softly, shifting Emma to her other arm. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, and Maya's breath caught. His eyes were the exact shade of green as the deep forest, rimmed with thick dark lashes. But they were filled with pure terror. "I can't find my daddy," he whispered. "I was right here, but then I saw a dog and I followed it, and now..." His voice broke into fresh sobs. Maya glanced around the empty park. Dusk was settling over the manicured lawns, and she could smell rain in the air. This wasn't a safe place for a lost child. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Oliver." He hiccuped. "Oliver Cross." Cross. Maya knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Cross Industries owned half the downtown skyline. She should call the police. She should walk away. She should do anything except what she was about to do. Instead, Maya sat down beside him, careful not to wake Emma. "Well, Oliver Cross, my name is Maya, and this sleeping beauty is Emma. We're going to figure this out together, okay?" Oliver nodded, scooting closer to her on the bench. The movement released his scent, young wolf, with undertones of expensive soap and something else. Something that made Maya's omega instinct sing with the need to protect. "Can you tell me what your daddy looks like?" she asked, smoothing Oliver's hair back from his forehead. The gesture was automatic, maternal. "He's really tall," Oliver said, leaning into her touch. "And he has dark hair like mine, but his eyes are different. They're more like storm clouds. Gray and scary sometimes. But not scary to me," he added quickly. "Just scary to other people." An alpha, then. Maya had figured as much. The Cross family were notorious in wolf circles: old money, old power, old bloodlines. "He wears suits all the time," Oliver continued. "Even on Saturdays. And he smells like his office. You know, like important things." Maya bit back a smile. "Important things have a smell?" "Uh-huh. Like leather and computers and being the boss of everyone." This time Maya did smile. "That sounds very important indeed." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Emma stirred against Maya's shoulder, making a soft cooing sound that had Oliver perking up. "Is that your baby?" "She is. She's 2. She's pretty," Oliver said solemnly. "Does she cry a lot?" "Babies cry a lot in movies." "Sometimes. But mostly she's pretty good." Maya shifted Emma again, her arms aching from carrying her daughter all day. "Do you have any brothers or sisters, Oliver?" He shook his head. "Just me and Daddy. Mommy went to heaven when I was little." The simple words hit Maya square in the chest. She knew about loss, about being alone. "I'm sorry, honey." "It's okay. I don't remember her much. But Daddy gets sad sometimes. He doesn't think I know, but I do." Maya was about to respond when she felt it, a prickling along her skin that had nothing to do with the cooling air. Someone was watching them. She turned slowly, scanning the shadows between the trees. There, partially hidden behind an oak tree about 30 feet away, stood a man. Even in the dim light, she could see he was exactly as Oliver had described. Tall, dark-haired, wearing what looked like an expensive suit despite the evening hour. But it was his eyes that made Maya's breath catch. They were fixed on his son with an intensity that was purely predatory. "Alpha," her instincts whispered. "Powerful one." "Oliver," she said quietly, not taking her eyes off the man. "I think your daddy found us." The boy's head whipped around, and his face lit up like Christmas morning. "Daddy." He started to run toward the figure, but Maya caught his arm gently. Something about the way the man was standing, perfectly still, watching, made her cautious. "Let's walk over together," she suggested. As they approached, Maya could feel the man's gaze shift to her. It was like being studied under a microscope. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and met his stare directly. He was handsome in the way powerful men often were, sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, the kind of commanding presence that made rooms go quiet. But there was something else in his expression as he looked at her. Something that looked almost like surprise. "Daddy, this is Maya," Oliver announced, still clinging to her free hand. "She took care of me when I was scared. And this is Emma, but she's sleeping." The man, Damien Cross, it had to be, stepped forward into the light. Up close, Maya could see the expensive cut of his suit, the Rolex on his wrist, the carefully styled hair that probably cost more than her rent. "Thank you," he said, and his voice was exactly what she'd expected. Deep, cultured, with just a hint of roughness that spoke of his wolf nature. "I've been looking everywhere." "He was right here by the fountain," Maya said, trying not to notice how Oliver was still pressed against her side instead of running to his father. "Safe and sound." Damien's gray eyes flicked down to his son, and for just a moment, Maya saw something vulnerable cross his features. Relief, maybe. Or regret. "Oliver," he said. "You know better than to wander off." "I'm sorry, Daddy. I saw a dog and we'll discuss it at home." The words were firm but not harsh. Then Damien looked back at Maya. "I'd like to thank you properly." "Perhaps I could." "No need," Maya said quickly, stepping back. This was where she made her exit, before things got complicated. Before anyone asked questions about why an Omega was alone with a child in this part of town. But Oliver's grip on her hand tightened. "Maya, you don't have to go yet, do you?" She looked down at his upturned face, seeing the same fear there that had been present when she'd found him. The fear of being left alone. "I should get Emma home," she said gently. "It's past her bedtime." "But Oliver." Damien's voice cut through his son's protest. "A mess." "Just Maya," she said firmly. "Maya needs to get her daughter home." "What do we say?" Oliver's shoulders slumped, but he looked up at Maya with those heartbreaking green eyes. "Thank you for taking care of me. And for not leaving me alone." The words hit harder than they should have. Maya crouched down, balancing Emma carefully, and looked Oliver in the eye. "You listen to me, sweetheart. You're never really alone, okay? Your daddy loves you very much. I can see it." She glanced up at Damien as she said it, noting how his expression had gone carefully blank. Yeah, she could see it. She could also see that he had no idea how to show it. Standing, Maya took a step back. "Take care of yourself, Oliver Cross." She turned to leave, but Damien's voice stopped her. "Wait." When she looked back, he was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Behind him, Oliver was watching both of them with the sharp intelligence children possessed when adults thought they weren't paying attention. "How did you know?" Damien asked quietly. "Know what?" "That he needed you to stay." The question was simple, but something in his tone made Maya think he was asking about more than just tonight. About more than just Oliver. I'm a mother, she said simply. We know these things. She walked away then, feeling their eyes on her back until she disappeared into the trees. But even as she made her way home to their tiny apartment, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something had just changed. Something important. Behind her, hidden in the shadows she'd left behind, Damien Cross stood watching the place where she'd vanished, his son's small hand in his, and wondered why the scent of vanilla and strength was still lingering in the air around him. Why he couldn't stop thinking about the woman who'd cared for his child like he was her own. And why, for the first time in years, he wanted to see someone again. Chapter 2. The silence in the Bentley was deafening. Damien glanced in the rearview mirror at Oliver, who sat buckled in his car seat, staring out the window with the kind of focused intensity that meant his 6-year-old mind was working overtime. They'd been driving for 10 minutes, and his son hadn't said a word since they'd left the park. This was unusual. Oliver was a chatterbox, especially after any kind of adventure. But tonight, he seemed lost in thought. Everything all right back there? Damien asked, navigating through the evening traffic toward their estate in the hills. Daddy? Oliver's voice was small. Why did Maya have to leave? Damien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd been asking himself the same question for the past 15 minutes. She had to get her daughter home. It was past Emma's bedtime. But we could have given them a ride. Our car is big enough. Out of the mouths of babes. Damien had thought the same thing, but something about Maya's body language had screamed flight risk. The moment he'd mentioned thanking her properly, she'd backed away like a spooked deer. She needed to get home, son. People have their own lives, their own routines. Oliver was quiet for another moment. Then, she smelled nice. Damien nearly swerved into the next lane. What? Maya. She smelled nice. Like cookies and flowers and safe things. Oliver swung his legs, his heels thumping against his car seat. Not like the ladies at your office. They smell like sharp things. Perfume, Damien thought. Expensive perfume and ambition and careful calculation. Yeah, he could see how a child would find that sharp. But Maya had smelled like vanilla and something earthier. Something that had made his wolf sit up and take notice in a way that had nothing to do with politics or pack dynamics. She was very kind to you, Damien said carefully. She didn't leave me alone, Oliver said, and there was something in his voice that made Damien's chest tight. Even when you came, she didn't just leave. She made sure I was okay first. The observation hit harder than it should have. How many people in Oliver's life would have simply handed him off the moment his father appeared? How many saw him as an obligation rather than a person? Most people would have done the same thing, Damien said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. No, they wouldn't. Oliver's voice was matter-of-fact. Mrs. Henderson at school just tells us to sit down and be quiet when we're sad. And your friend Penelope always looks at me like I'm messy. But Maya, she listened. And she had a baby to carry, but she still had room for me. Damien pulled into their circular driveway, the motion sensors triggering lights that illuminated the sprawling modern mansion. Home. 23 rooms of carefully decorated emptiness. As they walked up to the front door, Oliver slipped his small hand into Damien's larger one. Daddy? Do you think we'll see Maya again? The question lodged itself somewhere in Damien's chest. I don't know, Oliver. But as he said it, Damien realized he wanted to know. He wanted to know more than was reasonable about the woman who'd cared for his son like he mattered. 2 hours later, after Oliver had been fed, bathed, and tucked into bed with 3 different stories and 2 glasses of water, Damien found himself in his home office, staring at his laptop screen without seeing it. He couldn't concentrate. Every time he tried to review the Morrison acquisition files, his mind wandered back to the park. To green eyes and gentle hands and the way Maya had looked when she'd told Oliver he was never really alone. Like she knew what alone felt like. Damien pushed back from his desk and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Somewhere down there, Maya was putting her daughter to bed in whatever kind of home a diner waitress could afford. The contrast between her world and his felt vast, unbridgeable. So why couldn't he stop thinking about crossing it? His phone buzzed with a text from Harrison, his personal assistant. Morrison contracts ready for review. Need anything else tonight? Damien stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, actually, yes. I need you to look into someone for me. The response came immediately, of course. Business or personal? Damien hesitated. What was this? Business? Personal? He didn't even know Maya's last name. Personal, he typed finally. Her name is Maya. Works at a diner, has a 2-year-old daughter named Emma. I'll send you what other details I have. There was a longer pause this time before Harrison responded, on it. I'll have a preliminary report by morning. Damien set the phone down and returned to the window. In the reflection, he could see his own face, and he didn't like what he saw there. When had he become the kind of man who investigated women who were kind to his child? But even as the thought crossed his mind, he knew he wasn't going to call Harrison back. He needed to know more about Maya. Needed to understand why she'd affected him so strongly, why Oliver had responded to her the way he had. Needed to know if what he'd felt in that park was real or just the product of a lonely man's imagination. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching Damien's mood as he sat in his corner office 60 floors above the city. He'd barely slept, his dreams filled with vanilla scents and gentle voices. Harrison knocked on his office door at exactly 9 a.m., carrying a tablet and wearing the carefully neutral expression he used when he had information his boss might not want to hear. Come in, Damien called, not looking up from the quarterly reports he was pretending to read. Harrison closed the door behind him and approached the desk. I have that information you requested. And? Maya Christine Reeves, 24 years old. Works at Mel's Diner on 5th Street, has for the past 8 months. Before that, she worked at a truck stop outside the city limits. Before that. Harrison paused. The trail gets fuzzy. Damien looked up. Fuzzy how? She appears to have no fixed address before 18 months ago. No credit history before then either. It's like she didn't exist before Emma was born. That was odd. In the connected world of werewolf packs, people didn't just appear from nowhere. Everyone belonged somewhere, had a history, a lineage. What about pack affiliation? Harrison shook his head. None that I could find. No registration with the local Alpha Council, no emergency contacts listed with pack connections. She's what you might call a lone wolf. Impossible. Omegas didn't survive alone, especially not with children. They needed pack protection, pack support. It was basic biology. Financial situation? Harrison's expression grew more troubled. Dire. She's 3 weeks behind on rent for a studio apartment in the Riverside district. Works double shifts 6 days a week and still barely makes enough to cover basics. No savings account, no assets beyond a 12-year-old Honda that's probably worth less than what she owes on it. Damien felt something cold settle in his stomach. And the child's father? No father listed on the birth certificate. No record of a mate bond. No indication she was ever in a relationship serious enough to produce documentation. Harrison paused. There's something else. What? She has a police record. Just one incident, about 10 months ago. Disturbing the peace. Damien's wolf stirred uneasily. Details. Harrison consulted his tablet. She was arrested outside a grocery store for what the report calls aggressive behavior toward another customer. Charges were dropped when security footage showed the other party had grabbed her arm first. The responding officer noted that Ms. Reeves appeared to be defending herself and her child. Someone attacked her? According to the report, a male individual approached her in the parking lot and became physically aggressive when she refused his advances. She responded by breaking his grip and shouting loudly enough to attract attention. He left the scene before police arrived. Damien was very still. Did they get a description of the male? Tall, dark hair, expensive clothes. The officer noted he appeared to be well-dressed and potentially influential, which is why Ms. Reeves was initially arrested instead of treated as a victim. The cold in Damien's stomach was spreading. A lone Omega with a child, no pack protection, barely surviving financially. She was vulnerable in every way that mattered in their world. That's everything? He asked. Harrison hesitated. There is one more thing. It might be nothing. Tell me. I ran her photo through facial recognition, cross-referenced with missing persons databases going back 3 years. Harrison touched his tablet, pulling up a new screen. There's a possible match. A woman named Maya Sullivan, reported missing from a pack territory in Montana 2.5 years ago. Damien's head snapped up. Missing how? The report is sparse. Filed by pack leadership, states that she disappeared during a time of pack transition and that they feared for her safety. But here's the interesting part, the report was withdrawn 6 months later. No explanation given. Pack transition. That was a euphemism that could mean anything from leadership change to pack dissolution. But the timeline, 2.5 years ago, would put Maya's disappearance right around the time she would have gotten pregnant with Emma. What kind of pack was it? Harrison's expression grew even more troubled. Traditional. Very traditional. The kind that still practices arranged matings and considers unmated Omegas to be pack property. The pieces were starting to form a picture that made Damien's wolf pace restlessly. A young Omega, possibly from a controlling pack, disappears around the time she becomes pregnant. Reappears 18 months later with a new name, no pack affiliation, and a child with no father listed. Running. She'd been running. Sir? Harrison's voice cut through his thoughts. What would you like me to do with this information? Damien stood and walked to his window, looking down at the city where Maya was probably starting her lunch shift at the diner, where she would smile at customers and serve coffee and pretend her life wasn't falling apart. Nothing, he said finally. File it away and don't discuss it with anyone. Of course. Harrison turned to leave, but Damien's voice stopped him. Actually, there is something else you can do. Sir? Mel's Diner on 5th Street. I want you to buy it. Harrison blinked. The entire diner? Whatever it takes. Set up a shell company if you need to, but I want it done quietly and quickly. And Harrison? Damien turned to face his assistant. Make sure any new ownership policies include substantial raises for long-time employees. Yes, sir. Might I ask why? Damien looked back out at the city, thinking of Oliver's words from the night before. She didn't leave me alone. Consider it a business investment, he said. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that seem worthless to everyone else. After Harrison left, Damien remained at the window, his mind racing. Maya Reeves, or Maya Sullivan, or whoever she really was, had somehow carved out a life for herself and her daughter with nothing but determination and sheer will. She was barely surviving, but she was surviving. And last night, she'd taken time she couldn't afford to comfort a lost child who wasn't her responsibility. Damien had built an empire on his ability to recognize value where others saw none. To spot potential that was overlooked or underestimated. He had a feeling Maya was going to be his most important discovery yet. But first, he needed to find a way to see her again without making her run. Because one thing was becoming crystal clear, Maya had spent the last 2 years running from something. He just had to make sure she didn't run from him. Chapter 3. The call came at 10:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, right in the middle of the morning rush at Mel's Diner. Maya was balancing 3 plates of eggs Benedict on one arm and a coffee pot in her free hand when her phone buzzed against her hip. She ignored it. Customers came first, especially when tips were the difference between eating and not eating. But it kept buzzing. 3 times in rapid succession. Maya, honey, you better get that, called Mel from behind the grill, his gruff voice tinged with concern. Might be about your little one. Heart suddenly racing, Maya set down the plates and pulled out her phone. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was local. Maya Reeves? This is Mrs. Patterson from Riverside Elementary. I'm calling about Oliver Cross. Maya's blood went cold. Oliver? But he didn't go to public school. His father would have him enrolled somewhere private, exclusive. I'm sorry, Maya said, stepping away from the busy dining area. I think you have the wrong number. I don't. You're listed as his emergency contact. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. That's impossible. I barely know him. Miss Reeves, Oliver has been asking for you specifically. He's having quite a difficult morning, and his father can't be reached. We found your name and number in his backpack, written in his own handwriting. Maya leaned against the wall, her mind reeling. What kind of difficult morning? He's refusing to participate in any activities, won't speak to his teachers, and he's been crying on and off since first period. When we asked what was wrong, he kept saying he wanted Maya with the baby. Mrs. Patterson's voice softened. He seems quite attached to you. Through the diner's front window, Maya could see her beat-up Honda in the parking lot, the check engine light that had been on for 3 weeks now. She had exactly 6 hours left on her shift, and she couldn't afford to leave early. But Oliver was asking for her. I'll be right there, she heard herself say. 20 minutes later, Maya was sitting in the principal's office of Riverside Elementary, a school that cost more per year than she made in 2, watching a 6-year-old boy who looked like his world had ended. Oliver was curled up in a chair that dwarfed his small frame, his expensive school uniform wrinkled and tear-stained. The moment he saw Maya, his face crumpled with relief. Maya. He launched himself at her, wrapping his small arms around her waist. You came. Of course I came, sweetheart. Maya knelt down to his level, smoothing his dark hair. What's going on? Mrs. Patterson says you're having a rough day. I wanted to tell you about my science project, Oliver mumbled against her shoulder. And about the book I'm reading. And Tommy Jenkins said his mom makes the best pancakes, but I told him you probably make better ones, and he said you weren't my mom so you wouldn't make me pancakes anyway, and then I got sad because... He trailed off, but Maya understood. Because she wasn't his mom. Because she was just a stranger who'd helped him once, and he had no reason to think he'd see her again. Oh, honey, Maya whispered, her heart breaking a little. You know what? I bet you do make really good pancakes. Maybe sometime you can teach me your recipe. Oliver pulled back to look at her with hope shining in his green eyes. Really? Really? Maya looked up at Mrs. Patterson, who was watching the interaction with professional interest. Has his father been contacted? We've been trying for 2 hours. His assistant says he's in meetings and can't be disturbed. Maya felt a flicker of irritation. What kind of meetings were more important than your child's well-being? Oliver, Maya said gently, why don't you tell me about this science project while we wait for your dad? They were deep in a discussion about the life cycle of butterflies when the principal's office door burst open and Damien Cross strode in like a man who owned the world, which, Maya reflected, he probably did. He was dressed in another expensive suit, this one charcoal gray that made his eyes look like storm clouds. His dark hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and there was a tightness around his mouth that spoke of barely controlled tension. Oliver, he said, his voice carefully controlled. Are you all right? Oliver looked up from the butterfly diagram he'd been showing Maya. Hi, Daddy. Maya came to see my project. Damien's gaze shifted to Maya, and she felt that same electric awareness from the park. Up close, in the fluorescent lighting of the principal's office, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the worry lines that spoke of a man who carried too much weight on his shoulders. Ms. Reeves, he said formally. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you were bothered. She wasn't bothered, Oliver piped up before Maya could respond. She wanted to see my butterfly project. And she said maybe I could teach her to make pancakes. Damien's eyebrows rose slightly. Did she? Maya stood, suddenly aware of how she must look, diner uniform stained with coffee, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, probably smelling like bacon grease. Next to Damien's polished perfection, she felt shabby and out of place. It was no trouble, she said. Oliver was just having a hard day. So I heard. Damien's attention shifted to his son. Oliver, why don't you gather your things? We'll finish the day at home. Can Maya come with us? Oliver asked hopefully. Maya saw Damien's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Maya has to get back to work, son. It was a dismissal, polite but firm. Maya got the message loud and clear. Thank you for your help, but we don't need you anymore. Of course, she said, forcing a smile for Oliver's sake. I have to get back to the diner anyway. But I'm glad you're feeling better, sweetheart. She started toward the door, but Oliver's voice stopped her. Maya? Will I see you again? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya looked at Damien, seeing something complicated flash across his features. Then she looked back at Oliver, at his hopeful face and the trust shining in his eyes. I hope so, she said honestly. Take care of yourself, okay? Maya made it exactly 3 blocks from the school before she had to pull over and cry. She sat in her car in a convenience store parking lot, her hands shaking as she gripped the steering wheel. This was exactly why she kept to herself, why she didn't get involved. Children got attached, and then they got hurt when the adults in their lives decided attachment was inconvenient. But Oliver reminded her of herself at that age. Lonely, desperate for connection, trying so hard to be good that it hurt. And his father, for all his wealth and power, clearly had no idea how to bridge the gap between them. Her phone rang. Maya wiped her eyes and glanced at the screen, expecting Mel wondering where she was. Instead, she saw a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Ms. Reeves? This is Damien Cross. Maya's breath caught. Mr. Cross. Is Oliver all right? He's fine. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I was wondering if we could meet. To discuss Oliver. I don't understand. There was a pause. Would you be free this evening? After your shift ends? Maya glanced at the clock on her dashboard. It was barely noon. I suppose so. But Mr. Cross, I'm not sure what there is to discuss. I barely know your son. That's exactly the problem, Damien said quietly. And please, call me Damien. They met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the diner. Maya had gone home after her shift to change out of her uniform, though her options were limited. Clean jeans and a sweater that had seen better days were the best she could manage. Damien was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall, an alpha's position, she noted. He'd traded his suit for dark slacks and a button-down shirt, but he still looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Thank you for coming, he said as she sat down across from him. I'm still not sure why I'm here, Maya admitted. Damien was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Oliver has been asking about you every day since the park. His teacher called me yesterday to say he's been distracted, unfocused. Today was just the culmination. Maya felt a stab of guilt. I'm sorry. I never meant. Don't apologize. Damien's voice was firm. You showed kindness to a child who needed it. The problem isn't what you did. The problem is what I haven't been doing. Maya waited, sensing there was more. Oliver's mother died when he was 3, Damien said quietly. Cancer. It was difficult. For both of us. Since then, it's been just the 2 of us, and I've tried to give him everything he needs. The best schools, the best opportunities, anything money can buy. But? Maya prompted. But I work 60-hour weeks. I travel constantly. Oliver spends more time with nannies and housekeepers than he does with me. Damien's hands were wrapped around his coffee cup, his knuckles white. And apparently, what he needs isn't something money can buy. Maya's heart ached for both of them. He needs his father. He needs a mother figure, Damien corrected. Someone who understands children, who can give him the emotional connection he's craving. Someone like you. Maya blinked. I'm sorry, what? I'm offering you a job, Maya. Live-in nanny for Oliver. Full benefits, salary that's triple what you're making at the diner, private quarters for you and Emma. Damien leaned forward. Oliver responds to you in a way he hasn't responded to anyone since his mother died. I'd be a fool not to recognize that. Maya stared at him, her mind reeling. You want me to move into your house? With Emma? The estate has a separate wing that would be perfect for you and your daughter. Oliver would have the maternal influence he needs, and Emma would grow up with advantages you can't provide on a waitress salary. It was a reasonable offer. A generous offer. So why did Maya's instinct scream danger? I don't understand, she said slowly. You don't know anything about me. For all you know, I could be a terrible influence on children. Something shifted in Damien's expression. I know enough. The word sent a chill down Maya's spine. What does that mean? It means I'm a careful man, Maya. I don't make offers like this lightly. He'd investigated her. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. He'd dug into her background, her finances, probably her entire life history. What exactly do you think you know? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I know you're struggling financially. I know you work 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet. I know you're a good mother who would do anything for her child. Damien's gray eyes were steady on hers. And I know that whatever brought you to this city, you left everything behind to get here. Maya's hands were shaking. She clasped them in her lap, fighting the urge to run. And you think that makes me suitable to care for your son? I think it makes you someone who understands what it means to protect a child at any cost. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Maya stared at this man who had somehow seen through the carefully constructed walls she'd built around her new life. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Damien pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. My personal number is on the back. Call me when you've decided. Maya took the card, her fingers brushing his briefly. The contact sent electricity up her arm, and she saw Damien's pupils dilate slightly in response. Definitely dangerous. There's one more thing, Damien said as she stood to leave. The salary starts immediately, whether you take the position or not. Consider it payment for what you did for Oliver today. I don't want your money, Maya said quickly. It's not charity. It's compensation for services rendered. Damien's smile was slight but genuine. And Maya? Oliver isn't the only one who would benefit from this arrangement. Maya walked home in a daze, Damien's business card burning a hole in her pocket. The offer was impossible, generous, and terrifying all at once. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the notice taped to her apartment door. Almost. Maya stared at the bright yellow paper, the words blurring together as her heart sank. Notice to quit. 3 days to vacate premises or face eviction proceedings. 3 days. She had 3 days to come up with rent money she didn't have, or she and Emma would be on the streets. Inside the apartment, Emma was napping on the couch while Mrs. Hartwell, the elderly neighbor who watched her during Maya's shifts, dozed in the chair nearby. Mrs. Hartwell? Maya whispered. The older woman stirred. Oh, Maya. How was work? Fine. Maya showed her the eviction notice. Did Mr. Rodriguez come by today? Mrs. Hartwell's face darkened. That man is heartless. I told him you're a good tenant, that you just need a little time, but he said business is business. She gathered her purse and sweater. I'm sorry, dear. I wish I could help more. After Mrs. Hartwell left, Maya sat on her tiny couch, holding Emma close as her daughter slept. 3 days. She had 3 days to figure out how to keep a roof over their heads. Damien's business card lay on the coffee table, seeming to mock her with its elegant simplicity. Maya had spent 2 years running from powerful men who thought they could control her life. The last thing she should do was put herself and Emma in the power of another one. But Oliver needed her. And despite every instinct screaming at her to stay away, she couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her today, like she was the answer to prayers he'd been too young to articulate. More importantly, Emma needed stability. Safety. A future that didn't involve sleeping in their car or moving from one cheap motel to another. Maya reached for her phone and dialed before she could lose her nerve. Damien? It's Maya. I accept your offer. The next morning, a moving truck appeared outside Maya's apartment building, followed by a black SUV with tinted windows. Maya watched from her window as Harrison stepped out, looking crisp and professional in his tailored suit. Ms. Reeves? He knocked on her door with practiced efficiency. I'm Harrison, Mr. Cross's assistant. I'm here to facilitate your move. Maya opened the door, Emma balanced on her hip. We don't have much to move. Harrison's expression softened slightly as he looked at Emma, who was studying him with curious eyes. No matter. We'll make sure everything is handled properly. The move took less than 2 hours. Maya's entire life fit into 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. As the truck pulled away from the rundown apartment complex, Maya felt a mixture of relief and terror. She was doing the right thing for Emma. She had to believe that. The Cross estate was even more intimidating in daylight. The house rose from manicured grounds like something from a fairy tale, all glass and steel and modern lines that spoke of wealth beyond imagination. Holy hell, Maya whispered, then immediately covered her mouth. Sorry. I meant, wow. Harrison's lips twitched with amusement. First time seeing the house? It's a little bigger than what we're used to. Mr. Cross wanted to make sure you and Emma would be comfortable. Your quarters are in the east wing, completely private, with your own entrance if you prefer. As they pulled up the circular driveway, Maya saw Oliver pressed against one of the massive front windows, his face bright with excitement. The sight made her chest warm despite her nervousness. Maybe this would work out after all. Harrison helped her out of the car, then leaned closer as he handed Emma down to her. His voice was quiet, meant for her ears alone. Ms. Reeves? A word of advice? Maya tensed. Yes? Mr. Cross is a good man, but he's also an alpha with territorial instincts. You're an unmated omega moving into his space with a child. That's going to trigger certain responses. Harrison's brown eyes were serious. Just be aware that the dynamics in this house are more complicated than a typical employer-employee relationship. Before Maya could ask what he meant, the front door burst open and Oliver came running down the steps, followed by a more sedate Damien. Maya. You came. Is Emma going to live here too? Can I show her my room? Do you want to see the pool? Oliver's enthusiasm was infectious, and Maya found herself smiling despite her nerves. Slow down, sweetheart. We just got here. Damien approached more slowly, his gray eyes taking in every detail of her appearance. Maya was suddenly aware of his size, his presence, the way he moved with predatory grace. Harrison's warning echoed in her mind. Territorial instincts. Welcome home, Damien said quietly, and something in his tone made Maya's breath catch. Home. When was the last time anywhere had felt like home? Thank you, she managed. We're grateful for the opportunity. I think you'll find it's mutually beneficial, Damien replied, his gaze lingering on her face before shifting to Emma, who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. As they walked toward the house, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just crossed more than a threshold. She'd entered a world where the rules were different, where power and instinct mattered more than logic. Where a lonely alpha and his son might just be the family she'd never dared to hope for. Or the trap she'd spent 2 years running from. Only time would tell which. Chapter 4. 3 weeks into living at the Cross estate, Maya discovered that luxury had a way of making you forget how precarious your situation really was. She woke each morning in a bedroom larger than her old apartment, with Emma babbling happily in the toddler bed Damien had somehow acquired overnight. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked gardens maintained by an army of groundskeepers. The bathroom had heated floors and a soaking tub that could fit 3 people. It was easy to pretend this was real. That she belonged here. The illusion usually lasted until she remembered that she was staff. Highly paid, well-treated staff, but staff nonetheless. Maya. Maya, look. Oliver's voice carried across the mansion's great room as she descended the main staircase, Emma on her hip. He was sitting at the massive dining table, homework spread out before him, practically vibrating with excitement. "What am I looking at, sweetheart?" Maya asked, settling Emma in her high chair before moving to examine Oliver's work. "I got an A on my butterfly project. Mrs. Patterson said it was the best one in the class." Oliver beamed up at her. "And she asked if you could come to the parent presentation next week." Maya's heart did a little flip. In the 3 weeks she'd been here, Oliver had transformed from a sullen, withdrawn child into this bright, eager boy. His grades had improved, his nightmares had stopped, and he laughed constantly, especially when he was helping her with Emma. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of you." Maya ruffled his dark hair. "But you know your dad will want to go to the presentation." Oliver's face fell slightly. "Daddy's in Chicago until Friday. And besides, you helped me with the project. You should be there." Before Maya could respond, the familiar sound of expensive shoes on marble announced Damien's arrival. Maya's pulse quickened, an automatic response she'd been trying to ignore for weeks. He appeared in the doorway of the dining room, and Maya's breath caught the way it always did. 3 weeks of seeing him every day hadn't diminished the impact of his presence. If anything, living in close quarters had made her more aware of everything about him: the way he moved, the subtle changes in his scent when he was stressed, the rare genuine smiles he reserved for Oliver. And lately, for her. "Good morning," Damien said, his gray eyes moving from Oliver to Emma, who squealed happily at the sight of him, to Maya. His gaze lingered on her face a beat longer than necessary, and Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Daddy. I got an A." Oliver launched into an excited retelling of his academic success while Damien poured himself coffee from the service that appeared like magic every morning. Maya tried not to watch the way Damien's hands moved, or the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he reached for the sugar. 3 weeks of suppressing her attraction to her employer was taking its toll. "That's excellent, son," Damien said when Oliver finished. "Maya, you've been helping him with his homework?" "Just a little guidance," Maya said quickly. "Oliver does all the work himself." "She's a really good teacher," Oliver added loyally. "She doesn't get frustrated when I don't understand something right away." Something flickered across Damien's face, an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "I'm sure she is." The moment was interrupted by Harrison appearing in the doorway, tablet in hand, and that slightly harried expression he wore when Damien's schedule was about to implode. "Sir? Mrs. Blackwood is here for your 10 o'clock. Maya saw Damien's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Of course she is. 15 minutes early, as always. Should I show her to my office?" "I'll be right there." Damien turned back to Oliver. "Be good for Maya, all right? I'll see you tonight." He started to leave, then paused, looking back at Maya. "The parent presentation Oliver mentioned, I'd like you to attend with me. If you're willing." The request caught Maya off guard. Are you sure? I'm just the nanny." "You're the person who helped him succeed," Damien said quietly. "You should be there to see him present." Before Maya could respond, he was gone, leaving her with a warm feeling in her chest and Oliver beaming at her like she'd just agreed to take him to Disneyland. "This is going to be the best presentation ever," Oliver declared. Maya hoped he was right. An hour later, Maya was in the garden with both children when she heard voices coming from Damien's home office. The French doors were open to let in the spring air, and while she wasn't trying to eavesdrop, certain words carried clearly across the manicured lawn. "Completely inappropriate, Damien. A live-in nanny? Really?" The voice was cultured, female, and dripping with disapproval. Maya felt Emma stiffen in her arms. Even at 2 years old, her daughter could sense tension. "Penelope, my childcare arrangements are hardly your concern." Damien's voice was cooler than Maya had ever heard it. Penelope. Maya had heard the name mentioned by the household staff, some kind of family friend who'd been circling Damien like a vulture since his wife's death. "Everything about you is my concern," Penelope replied smoothly. "The pack expects certain standards, Damien. A proper mate, appropriate influences for Oliver. Oliver has never been happier. Oliver is 6 years old. He doesn't understand the implications of having an unmated Omega living in his home. But the pack does. My father does." Maya's blood went cold. Penelope's father, that would be Alpha Blackwood, leader of the local pack council. The kind of man who could make life very difficult for wolves who didn't follow traditional expectations. "Maya is an excellent nanny and a good influence on my son," Damien said, his voice deadly quiet. "That's all that matters." "Is it?" Penelope's laugh was sharp. "Come now, Damien. I have eyes. The way you look at her, the way she blushes whenever you're in the room. This isn't about childcare anymore, is it?" Maya's cheeks burned. Was she that obvious? "I think this conversation is over," Damien said. "This conversation is just beginning," Penelope countered. "I've been patient, Damien. I've given you time to grieve, time to adjust. But Oliver needs a proper mother, and you need a mate worthy of your position. The pack won't tolerate this arrangement indefinitely. The pack can go to hell." "Can it?" "You're not just any wolf, Damien. You're Cross Industries. Your choices affect hundreds of employees, dozens of pack families. Can you really afford to put your personal desires ahead of your responsibilities?" There was a long silence. Then Damien's voice, colder than winter, "Get out. I'm trying to help you. Get out." Maya heard the sharp click of heels on marble, then the slam of a door. She looked down at Oliver, who had gone very quiet beside her. "Oliver? You okay, sweetheart?" "I don't like Penelope," he said in a small voice. "She's mean. And she doesn't really want to be my mom. She just wants to marry Daddy because he's important." Out of the mouths of babes. Maya pulled Oliver closer, her mind racing. She'd known this situation was temporary, but hearing it laid out so starkly, the pack politics, the expectations, the pressure on Damien to choose an appropriate mate, made her realize just how precarious her position really was. "Maya?" Oliver looked up at her with those two wise eyes. "You're not going to leave, are you? Because of Penelope?" The question hit her like a physical blow. "Why would you think that?" "Because that's what always happens. People come, and then they leave when things get complicated." Oliver's voice was matter-of-fact, but Maya could hear the hurt underneath. "Even Mommy left, even though she didn't want to." Maya's heart broke a little. She knelt down, setting Emma on the grass so she could look Oliver in the eye. "Listen to me very carefully, Oliver Cross. I'm not going anywhere, okay? Not because of Penelope, not because of anyone. You're stuck with me. Promise?" Maya hesitated for just a moment, thinking of pack politics and appropriate mates and all the ways this could go wrong. Then she looked at Oliver's hopeful face and Emma reaching for dandelions in the grass, and the choice was easy. "I promise." The next 2 weeks passed in a haze of domestic bliss that Maya knew couldn't last. Damien threw himself into work with renewed intensity, traveling more than usual and spending long hours in his office when he was home. But when he was present, really present, the tension between him and Maya was thick enough to cut. It was the little things that undid her. The way he listened intently when she told him about Oliver's day. How he'd started saying goodnight to Emma along with Oliver, his deep voice gentle as he wished her sweet dreams. The morning she'd come downstairs to find him making pancakes because Oliver had mentioned wanting to learn Maya's recipe. "You don't have to do that," she'd said, watching him flip pancakes with surprising skill. "I want to," he'd replied simply. Oliver should know how to make the things that make him happy. The domestic scene, Damien at the stove, Oliver setting the table, Emma in her high chair babbling happily, had felt so much like a real family that Maya had to excuse herself to cry in the pantry. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Maya was giving Emma a bath in the luxurious master bathroom of their suite when the first cramp hit. She doubled over, gripping the edge of the tub, as realization dawned with horrible clarity. Her heat. After 2 years of stress-induced suppression, her heat was finally returning. Maya managed to finish Emma's bath and get her settled for the night, but by the time she tucked her daughter into bed, the symptoms were unmistakable. The fever, the hypersensitive skin, the need that clawed at her from the inside. She made it to her own bedroom before the next wave hit, stronger this time. Maya collapsed on her bed, pulling pillows around her like a nest, her body producing the pheromones that would call to every unmated male within miles, including the alpha whose territory she was living in. She needed to lock her door. Needed to call Harrison and have him explain her absence to Damien. Needed to do a dozen practical things to get through the next 3 days safely. Instead, she curled into a ball and whimpered as her body betrayed her with wants she couldn't fulfill. The knock on her bedroom door came 20 minutes later. Maya? Damien's voice was rough, strained. Are you all right? Maya bit her lip to keep from calling out to him. Even through the door, she could smell him, leather and cedar and the musk of an aroused alpha. Her body responded instantly, heat pooling low in her belly. I'm fine, she managed. Just tired. Maya. Her name was a growl. Open the door. I can't. The words came out as a whisper. You're in heat. It wasn't a question. Maya closed her eyes, pressing her face into the pillow. Please. Just, please leave me alone. There was a long silence. Then, have you eaten today? The question surprised her. What? Food, Maya. Water. When did you last eat? She tried to remember. Breakfast? Had she eaten lunch? The details were fuzzy, lost in the haze of her body's demands. I don't. I'm not sure. She heard him curse softly. I'm coming in. No. Maya struggled to sit up. Damien, you can't. If you come in here, I'll be in control, he said firmly. But you need to eat, and you need fluids. Heat sickness is dangerous. Before Maya could protest further, she heard the soft click of the lock disengaging. Damien stepped into her room, and the scent of him hit her like a physical blow. Maya curled tighter into her nest of pillows, not trusting herself to look at him. You shouldn't be here. Probably not, Damien agreed, his voice carefully controlled. But you're under my protection, Maya. That means I don't let you suffer alone. She risked a glance at him and immediately regretted it. He stood just inside the doorway, every line of his body tense with restraint. His eyes had gone dark, pupils dilated, and she could see the muscle in his jaw jumping as he fought his instincts. The food is on the nightstand, he said without moving closer. Soup, crackers, water. Try to eat something. Maya looked and saw he was right. A tray sat on her bedside table, steam rising from a bowl of what looked like homemade chicken soup. You made soup. Harrison did. I just supervised. Damien's hands were clenched at his sides. Maya, I need you to eat something and then I need to leave. Because staying here, smelling you like this, it's taking everything I have not to. He cut himself off, jaw clamping shut. Not to what? Maya asked, even though she knew she shouldn't. Damien's eyes met hers, and the hunger there made her breath catch. Not to claim you. Not to make you mine in every way that matters. The words hung between them, honest and dangerous. Maya's body responded instantly, a fresh wave of heat washing over her. I can't, she whispered. I'm your employee. You're my boss. Oliver needs stability, not complications. I know. Damien's voice was rough with want and frustration. I know all of that. But Maya, what I feel for you isn't about convenience or pack politics or any of the logical reasons I should stay away. It's about the way you've brought my son back to life. The way you make this house feel like a home instead of a monument to what I've lost. Maya closed her eyes, fighting tears. Damien. Eat the soup, Maya. Try to rest. This will pass, and we'll pretend it never happened. He turned to go, but Maya's voice stopped him. What if I don't want to pretend? Damien went very still. When he looked back at her, his eyes were pure wolf, predatory, possessive, barely human. Then we're both in trouble, he said quietly. Because I've been pretending for weeks that I don't want you. That I don't lie awake at night thinking about what it would be like to wake up next to you. That I don't watch you with our children and imagine what our life could be like if things were different. Our children. The words hit Maya like a thunderbolt. They're not our children, she said weakly. Aren't they? Damien asked. Oliver loves you like a mother. Emma lights up when I walk into a room. We may not be a traditional family, Maya, but we're already a pack. The only question is whether we're brave enough to admit it. Before Maya could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Maya stared at the space where he'd been, her heart racing and her body aching with more than just heat. Because he was right. Somewhere in the past few weeks, they'd become a family. And that was more terrifying than any heat she'd ever experienced. Outside her door, she could hear Damien's footsteps retreating down the hallway. Then, fainter, the sound of another door closing. Hard. Maya reached for the soup with shaking hands, trying not to think about the alpha down the hall who was probably taking the coldest shower of his life. Trying not to think about what Penelope would do if she ever found out about this. And trying very hard not to think about the fact that for the first time in years, Maya wanted someone to claim her. Wanted to belong to someone who would protect her and love her and never let her go. Even if that someone was the one person she absolutely couldn't have. The soup was good. But it did nothing to fill the ache in her chest that had nothing to do with her heat and everything to do with wanting something she couldn't name. Something that felt a lot like home. Chapter 5. Maya's heat lasted 3 days. 3 days of Damien leaving carefully prepared meals outside her door, of Harrison making excuses for her absence, of Oliver asking repeatedly when she'd be feeling better. 3 days of Maya fighting her body's demands while her heart ached for the alpha who was doing everything right and nothing she could accept. On the 4th morning, she emerged pale but steady, her body finally her own again. She found Oliver at the breakfast table, picking listlessly at his cereal. Maya. He launched himself at her with typical 6-year-old enthusiasm. Are you better? You were sick for so long. Daddy said you had the flu, but you didn't sound stuffy. Much better, sweetheart. Maya hugged him close, breathing in his little boy scent of sunshine and innocence. Did you miss me? So much. Daddy tried to help with my homework, but he doesn't explain fractions the way you do. And Emma kept looking for you. She kept saying, Maya, and pointing at your room. Guilt twisted in Maya's stomach. She'd been so focused on her own turmoil that she'd forgotten how her absence would affect the children. Where is Emma now? Upstairs with Mrs. Patterson. She's teaching her some new words. Oliver paused, then added in a whisper, Penelope came by yesterday. She was asking lots of questions about you. Maya went very still. What kind of questions? Oliver shrugged, but his expression was troubled. Stuff about where you came from, if you had family. She wanted to know why you and Emma don't have the same last name as Emma's daddy. Ice formed in Maya's veins. What did you tell her? That I don't know where Emma's daddy is, and that it doesn't matter because you're the best mom in the world. Oliver looked up at her with fierce loyalty. I don't like Penelope. She pretends to be nice, but her questions feel mean. Smart boy. Maya kissed the top of his head, her mind racing. Penelope was digging into her past, which meant it was only a matter of time before. Maya. She turned to find Damien in the doorway, and her breath caught the way it always did. But this time, there was something different in his expression. Something that looked like barely controlled fury. "Could I speak with you privately?" It wasn't a request. Maya's stomach dropped, but she nodded. "Oliver, why don't you go find Emma? I bet she'd love to show you her new words." Oliver bounced off happily, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. Maya waited until his footsteps disappeared up the stairs before turning back to Damien. "You look like you want to murder someone," she said quietly. "I do." Damien's gray eyes were stormy. "Penelope paid me a visit this morning. Early. She had some very interesting information to share." Maya's blood turned to ice. "What kind of information?" Instead of answering, Damien pulled out his phone and opened what looked like a private investigator's report. Montana Pack Territory. 3 years ago. A pack called the Silverstone Collective was completely destroyed by a rogue alpha named Kane Morrison. Maya's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the nearest chair, her vision going spotty around the edges. Damien continued reading, his voice carefully controlled. The rogue killed the pack alpha, claimed several unmated females as spoils of war. One female, Maya Sullivan, was held for 6 months before the pack was finally liberated by a coalition of neighboring territories. "Stop," Maya whispered. Kane Morrison was killed in the liberation. Most of his victims were rescued and rehabilitated. Damien's voice grew quieter. But Maya Sullivan disappeared before she could be debriefed. She was 6 months pregnant at the time. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. 3 years. 3 years of running, of hiding, of building a new life, and it had all just crumbled in an instant. "Maya." Damien's voice was gentler now. "Look at me." She couldn't bear to see the disgust, the pity, the inevitable rejection in his eyes. "Maya." He moved closer, and she could smell his scent, still warm, still comforting, but now tinged with something else. Rage. But not at her, she realized with surprise. For her. "I'm not Maya Sullivan anymore," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "That girl died in a basement in Montana. I'm Maya Reeves now. I'm Emma's mother. I'm Oliver's nanny. I'm not what happened to me." "No," Damien agreed quietly. "You're not. You're the woman who survived hell and still had enough heart left to comfort a lost child in a park. You're the mother who rebuilt her life from nothing to give her daughter a future. You're the person who brought laughter back to my son." Maya finally looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Penelope knows. Penelope knows. She'll tell everyone. The Pack Council, the media, anyone who'll listen. Emma will grow up knowing she was conceived in violence. Oliver will learn that his father employed a..." "Stop." Damien's voice was sharp. "You are not defined by what that monster did to you. Emma is not defined by how she was conceived. She's a beautiful little girl who laughs when Oliver makes funny faces and says, 'Dada,' when I walk into a room." The last part hit Maya like a physical blow. She hadn't realized Emma had started calling Damien that. "Penelope wants me gone," Maya said. "And she's right. My being here puts your reputation at risk, puts Oliver at risk. My reputation can go to hell." "No, it can't. You have responsibilities, people who depend on you." Penelope made that very clear. Maya stood on shaking legs. "I need to pack. Emma and I can be gone before." "You're not going anywhere." The command in Damien's voice stopped her cold. When she looked at him, his eyes had gone full alpha, dark, possessive, utterly implacable. "You don't understand," Maya said desperately. "Penelope isn't just going to whisper about this at pack meetings. She'll make it public. Newspapers, social media, everywhere. Billionaire CEO's dark secret. They'll make Emma's conception into entertainment. Let them try. Damien's voice was deadly quiet. I have more lawyers than Penelope has allies. And if anyone tries to hurt you or Emma, they'll discover exactly why I'm the alpha in this territory. For a moment, Maya felt a flicker of hope. But then reality crashed back in. You can't protect us from everything, Damien. And I won't be the reason your life falls apart. I won't be the reason Oliver loses his father to scandal. Maya. The sound of the front door chime interrupted him. A moment later, Harrison appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Sir. Penelope Blackwood is here. She's asking to speak with Maya privately. Maya's blood ran cold. She's here for the kill shot. Damien moved to stand between Maya and the doorway, every line of his body protective. Tell Penelope that Maya is unavailable. I'm afraid she was quite insistent, Harrison said carefully. She mentioned something about time-sensitive information that needed to be discussed immediately. Maya closed her eyes. Penelope wasn't going to be put off, and making her wait would only make things worse. It's okay, Maya said quietly. I'll talk to her. Like hell you will. Damien, she already has what she needs to destroy me. Making her angry won't change that. Maya straightened her shoulders, summoning the strength that had gotten her through 3 years of hiding. But maybe I can convince her to leave Emma out of it. Damien looked like he wanted to argue, but Maya was already walking toward the door. Penelope was waiting in the formal living room, looking every inch the alpha female in her designer suit and perfectly styled hair. She smiled when Maya entered, but it was the smile of a predator about to make a kill. Maya, darling. You look pale. I hope you're feeling better after your little illness. The emphasis made it clear Penelope knew exactly what kind of illness Maya had been suffering from. Heat. In Damien's house. Under his protection. What do you want, Penelope? Straight to the point. I like that. Penelope settled back in her chair like she owned the place. I want you gone. Tonight. You and your little bastard daughter. The slur hit like a physical blow, but Maya kept her expression neutral. And if I refuse? Penelope's smile widened. Then tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in the country will receive a very detailed report about Kane Morrison's victims. Complete with photographs, witness statements, and a particularly interesting DNA analysis proving that your daughter is the spawn of a rogue who murdered 12 innocent wolves. Maya's hands clenched at her sides. Emma is innocent. Emma is a reminder of violence and chaos. Do you really think Damien's business partners will want to associate with a man who harbors the child of a known killer? Do you think the Pack Council will continue to respect an alpha who chooses damaged goods over appropriate breeding stock? Each word was calculated to wound, and Penelope delivered them with surgical precision. What do you want? Maya asked again. I want you to disappear. Tonight. No goodbyes, no explanations, no forwarding address. Penelope leaned forward. In return, I'll sit on this information. Your little secret stays buried, and Emma gets to grow up without the whole world knowing how she was conceived. And Oliver? Oliver will get over it. Children are resilient. He'll forget about you eventually, especially once I'm here to provide proper maternal guidance. Maya felt sick. You're using my trauma to manipulate me into abandoning 2 children who need me. I'm offering you a chance to protect your daughter from public humiliation while giving Damien the opportunity to move on with his life. Penelope's voice was smooth as silk. It's really quite generous of me. Generous. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're blackmailing me. I'm presenting you with options. You can leave quietly tonight, or you can stay and watch your past destroy everyone you claim to care about. Penelope stood, smoothing her skirt. You have until midnight to decide. After that, I make the calls. She started toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Maya? Don't think about running to Damien with this. Men like him don't stay loyal to damaged goods when their empire is on the line. He'll choose his reputation over you every time. After Penelope left, Maya sat in the empty living room for a long time, her mind racing. She could tell Damien what Penelope had threatened, but what if Penelope was right? What if, when faced with choosing between his business and his son's future versus her and Emma, he chose the logical path? She couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk Emma growing up with the whole world knowing her conception story. Couldn't risk Oliver losing his father to scandal. The decision was made before she'd fully realized it. That night, after Oliver and Emma were asleep, Maya moved with quiet efficiency. She packed only the essentials: clothes, Emma's favorite stuffed animal, the small amount of cash she'd managed to save. Everything else, all the beautiful things Damien had provided, stayed behind. She left a note on her pillow, brief and to the point: "Thank you for everything. Please don't look for us. Take care of Oliver. M." Carrying Emma, who was still drowsy and confused, Maya slipped out through the service entrance she'd noticed during her first week. Her old Honda was still parked in the staff garage, and Harrison had kept it maintained even though she rarely used it. She was 3 miles from the estate when Emma started crying. "Mama, where are we going? Where's Oliver? Where's Dada?" The questions broke Maya's heart, but she kept driving. "We're going on an adventure, baby. Just you and me. Want Oliver. Want Dada." "I know, sweetheart. I know." Maya drove through the night, heading for the interstate and whatever life they could build elsewhere. In the rearview mirror, the lights of the city grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared entirely. She tried not to think about Damien waking up to find them gone. Tried not to imagine Oliver's heartbreak when he realized she'd broken her promise never to leave. Tried not to think about the life she was leaving behind, the first real home she'd known since her world fell apart 3 years ago. By dawn, they were in another state, and Maya's phone was buzzing constantly with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She turned it off and kept driving. Back at the Cross estate, Damien stood in Maya's empty bedroom, holding the note she'd left behind. Harrison hovered in the doorway, his usually composed face showing rare emotion. "The security cameras show her leaving at 2:17 a.m., Harrison reported quietly. "She disabled the GPS in her car, and her phone is off. She doesn't want to be found." Damien crushed the note in his fist, his control finally snapping. The sound that came from his throat was pure wolf, a howl of rage and loss that echoed through the empty room. "Sir?" "Find her," Damien said, his voice deadly quiet. "I don't care what it costs or how long it takes. Find them. And when we do?" Damien's eyes were pure alpha when he looked at his assistant. "Then I'm going to bring my family home. And God help anyone who tries to stop me." Down the hall, Oliver's voice could be heard calling for Maya, followed by the sound of running feet and Harrison's gentle voice explaining that Maya had to go away for a while. The heartbreak in his son's voice was the final straw. Damien had thought he loved Maya before, thought he understood the depth of his feelings for the woman who'd brought light back into their lives. But standing in her empty room, listening to his son's tears, Damien realized he hadn't understood anything at all. He didn't just love Maya. He was completely, irrevocably, soul-deep in love with her. And Emma wasn't just the child he'd grown attached to, she was his daughter in every way that mattered. They were his pack. His family. And he'd let them slip away in the night because he'd been too proud, too careful, too afraid of the very feelings that were now tearing him apart. Penelope thought she'd won by driving Maya away. She had no idea what she'd just unleashed. Chapter 6. 72 hours. That's how long Maya had been gone, and Damien was losing his mind. He stood in his office at Cross Industries, staring at the wall of monitors Harrison had installed. Security footage, traffic cameras, credit card tracking, cell phone triangulation, every tool money and influence could buy was focused on finding one woman and her 2-year-old daughter. So far, they'd found nothing. "Sir?" Harrison entered with yet another report, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. Like Damien, he'd barely slept since Maya's disappearance. "The team in Nevada thinks they spotted her Honda at a truck stop outside Reno. but by the time local authorities arrived, she was gone. Damien's hands clenched into fists. Maya was running hard and fast, using every trick she'd learned during her years of hiding. She was staying off main highways, paying cash, avoiding security cameras. The woman who'd survived 3 years as a lone Omega with a child knew how to disappear. What about the phone records? Her cell has been off since she left. But I did find something interesting. Harrison pulled up a file on his tablet. She made one call the night before she disappeared. To a number registered to a trucking company in Wyoming. Trucking company? Underground Railroad, Harrison clarified grimly. There's a network of truck drivers who help displaced wolves move between territories without official documentation. Very discreet, very expensive. Damien felt a chill of admiration mixed with frustration. Even in her panic, Maya had been smart enough to call in favors, to use resources he hadn't even known existed. Track down that driver. Offer whatever it takes to get information. Already tried. The company doesn't exist as of yesterday morning. Dissolved immediately after Maya's call. Of course it had. Maya wasn't just running, she was burning bridges behind her to make sure she couldn't be followed. Damien's phone buzzed with a call from the house. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly housekeeper who'd been trying to help with Oliver while Maya was gone. Sir? I'm sorry to bother you, but it's Master Oliver. He's gotten worse. Damien closed his eyes. Oliver had been inconsolable since discovering Maya and Emma were gone. The first day, he'd been angry, demanding to know where they were and when they were coming back. The second day, he'd bargained, promising to be good forever if Daddy would just bring Maya home. Today, he'd stopped eating. I'll be right there. The drive home felt endless. Damien's wolf paced restlessly, torn between the need to hunt for his missing pack and the desperate desire to comfort his son. Both instincts were equally strong, equally vital. He found Oliver in Maya's room, curled up in the center of her bed clutching one of Emma's stuffed animals. The sight hit Damien like a physical blow. Hey, buddy, Damien said softly, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. Oliver didn't acknowledge him. He just stared at the wall with red-rimmed eyes, his small body radiating misery. Mrs. Patterson says you didn't eat lunch. Not hungry. Oliver, you have to eat something. Maya's not coming back, is she? Oliver's voice was barely a whisper. Damien's throat tightened. I don't know, son. She promised. Oliver finally looked at him, and the devastation in his green eyes was unbearable. She promised she wouldn't leave like Mommy did. But she lied. The words hit Damien like a sledgehammer. Oliver. Everyone leaves, Oliver continued in that flat, matter-of-fact voice that was worse than any tantrum. Mommy left. Maya left. Even you leave all the time for work. Maybe I'm just not worth staying for. Damien felt something break inside his chest. He gathered his son into his arms, feeling how thin Oliver had gotten in just 3 days. Listen to me very carefully, Damien said fiercely. You are worth everything. You are the most important thing in my entire world. Maya didn't leave because of you, she left because someone threatened to hurt her and Emma if she stayed. Oliver pulled back to look at him. Someone hurt Maya? Someone tried to. But I'm going to find her, Oliver. I'm going to bring her and Emma home, and I'm going to make sure no one ever hurts them again. Promise? The word hung between them, heavy with the weight of a child's desperate hope. Damien thought of all the promises he'd made and broken, all the times work had come first, all the ways he'd failed as a father. I promise, he said simply. But I need your help. What can I do? I'm just a kid. You can remember what Maya taught you. That families don't give up on each other. That love is stronger than fear. Damien smoothed his son's dark hair. And you can help me think like Maya. Where would she go if she was scared and trying to protect Emma? Oliver was quiet for a long moment, his young mind working. Then, somewhere safe. Somewhere no one would think to look. Like where? Like the places she told me about. When she was teaching me about helping people. Oliver sat up straighter. She said sometimes people need help but they're too proud to ask. So you have to look for the places where proud people go when they have nowhere else. Out of the mouths of babes. Damien felt something click into place. You're brilliant, he told his son, meaning it completely. For the first time in 3 days, Oliver almost smiled. 2 hours later, Damien was on his private jet, heading for the last place anyone would expect to find Maya Reeves, the Riverside district, the same rundown neighborhood where she'd lived before coming to work for him. Harrison had protested the decision to go alone, but Damien's instincts were screaming that this required a personal touch. Maya was wounded, cornered, and probably expecting pursuit. Showing up with an army of security would only drive her deeper into hiding. The Moonlight Motel was exactly the kind of place Oliver had described, somewhere proud people went when they had nowhere else. Cheap, anonymous, the kind of establishment that didn't ask questions as long as the cash was real. Damien paid the desk clerk 3 times the room rate for information and got a sullen nod toward room 237. He climbed the exterior stairs slowly, every instinct on high alert. Maya's scent was there, faint but unmistakable, tinged with exhaustion and something else that made his wolf snarl. Fear. She reeked of fear. He knocked softly. Maya? It's Damien. Silence. Then the sound of rapid movement inside the room, as if someone was trying to hide. Maya, I know you're in there. I can smell you. More silence. Then Emma's voice, high and querulous. Dada? Dada here? The word hit Damien like a physical blow. Emma was calling for him. His daughter, because that's what she was, regardless of biology, was asking for him. Emma's sick. Maya's voice came through the door, rough with exhaustion and something that might have been tears. She's been asking for you and Oliver for 2 days. She won't eat, won't sleep. She just keeps saying, Dada, and Oliver. Then let me in. I can't. Maya. Damien pressed his palm against the door, wishing he could reach through it to touch her. Please. Let me help. There was a long pause. Then the sound of multiple locks disengaging. The door opened to reveal Maya, and Damien had to fight not to react to what he saw. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her hair hanging in unwashed tangles around a face that was too pale and too thin. But it was her eyes that destroyed him, hollow, haunted, filled with a self-loathing that made him want to tear apart whoever had put it there. Behind her, he could see Emma in a portable crib, her small face flushed with fever. She started getting sick yesterday, Maya said without looking at him. I think it's stress. Toddlers can get physically ill from emotional trauma, and she doesn't understand why we left. She just knows her family is gone. Her family. Even now, even running from him, Maya understood what they'd become. Damien stepped into the room, taking in the cheap furniture, the single bed, the handful of possessions scattered around. Maya had given up a life of luxury to protect her daughter, and she was slowly dying from the sacrifice. Maya, he said softly. Don't. She backed away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. Don't be kind to me. Don't make this harder than it already is. Come home. I can't. You know I can't. Maya's voice broke. Penelope will destroy you if I come back. She'll destroy Oliver's future, your business, everything you've worked for. All because you were foolish enough to care about damaged goods. Damien went very still. Is that what you think you are? Damaged goods? Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. Isn't that what I am? A woman whose own pack cast her out for bringing shame on them. A mother whose child was conceived in violence. Someone so broken that she can't even function in normal society without running away the moment things get complicated? You want to know what I think you are? Damien moved closer, his voice low and intense. I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. I think you survived hell and came out fighting. I think you rebuilt your life from nothing because you had a daughter to protect, and you've been carrying that weight alone for 3 years because you're too proud to ask for help. Maya shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Damien's voice was gentle now. You want to know about my late wife? About the perfect marriage everyone talks about? Maya looked up at him, confused by the change of subject. Celeste was chosen for me, Damien continued. By my father, by the Pack Council, by everyone who thought they knew what was best for the Cross family legacy. She was beautiful, well-bred, had all the right bloodlines. The perfect alpha mate. He walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot. We had a marriage of convenience that lasted 8 years. She gave me an heir, attended the right social functions, said the right things at pack meetings. And she was completely, utterly indifferent to Oliver from the moment he was born. Maya's breath caught. Damien. She saw him as an obligation. A necessary inconvenience to secure her position. Damien's hands clenched. When she got sick, she spent more time worried about how her illness would affect her appearance than she did thinking about what her death would mean to her son. That's horrible. It was practical. Logical. Everything a good alpha mate is supposed to be. Damien turned back to Maya. And it was completely loveless. For 8 years, I lived in a beautiful house with a perfect wife and felt completely alone. Maya wiped her eyes with shaking hands. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand that I know the difference between a marriage of convenience and the real thing. Damien moved closer. I know what it feels like to live with someone who sees you as a duty instead of a choice. And I know what it feels like to watch that person interact with your child like he's a burden instead of a gift. Damien. Maya, in 3 months, you've shown Oliver more genuine maternal love than Celeste did in 6 years. You've turned our house into a home. You've made me remember what it feels like to want to come home at the end of the day instead of finding excuses to stay at the office. Maya was crying harder now. But Penelope was right. I am damaged. Emma is the child of a rogue. I have no pack, no family, no. You have me. The words came out fiercer than Damien had intended. You have Oliver. You have Emma. You have a family that chose you, not because of bloodlines or politics or pack alliances, but because we love you. Love? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. I love you, Damien said simply. I love your strength, your compassion, the way you put everyone else's needs before your own. I love watching you with the children, love the way you make Oliver laugh, love how Emma lights up when you walk into a room. I love that you survived something that would have broken most people and still have enough heart left to comfort a lost child in a park. Maya stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. I love you, Damien repeated. Not because you're convenient or appropriate or what's expected of me. I love you because you're you. Because you're brave and fierce and beautiful, and because you've made me a better man and a better father just by being in our lives. Even knowing what I am? What Emma represents. Emma represents survival. Hope. The fact that something beautiful can come from even the darkest circumstances. Damien reached out slowly, giving Maya time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently. And you represent everything I never knew I wanted. A real partner. A real family. A real chance at happiness. Maya leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. I'm so tired of running. Then stop. Come home with me. Let me protect you. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Penelope can go to hell. Along with anyone else who thinks they can threaten my family. Maya opened her eyes. Your family? My pack, Damien corrected softly. You, me, Oliver, Emma. Nothing else matters. For a moment, Maya looked like she might say yes. Like she might let herself believe in the possibility of happiness. Then Emma coughed from her crib, a wet sound that spoke of worsening illness, and Maya's expression crumbled. She needs a doctor, Maya said. Real medical care, not whatever I can provide in a motel room. Then we'll get her to a doctor. Right now. Damien was already moving toward the crib when the door to the motel room exploded inward. The man who filled the doorway was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with the kind of brutal musculature that spoke of violence as a way of life. His dark hair was shot through with premature silver, and his eyes, pale blue and completely without warmth, swept the room like a predator assessing prey. Maya went white as a sheet. No. No, that's impossible. He's dead. Kane is dead. The man smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. Kane was my brother, Little Omega. And when the coalition killed him, they forgot to ask who taught him everything he knew. Alistair. This had to be Alistair, the rogue alpha from the outline. But the connection to Kane Morrison was now clear. They were brothers. Hello, Maya, Alistair continued, his voice like gravel. You've been very difficult to find. Maya stepped protectively in front of Emma's crib, her body trembling but her voice steady. Stay away from her. Alistair's gaze shifted to Damien, taking in his expensive clothes, his alpha posture, the way he'd moved to flank Maya protectively. And who might you be? Alistair asked with mock politeness. Someone who's about to remove you from this room, Damien replied, his voice deadly quiet. Alistair laughed. I don't think so. You see, Maya here has something that belongs to me. My brother's child. My blood. Emma belongs to no one but herself, Maya said fiercely. Emma belongs to the Morrison bloodline, Alistair corrected. And it's time she learned what that means. He took a step into the room, and Damien felt his wolf surge to the surface. The air crackled with alpha dominance as two predators faced off over territory, over pack, over everything that mattered. You have 10 seconds to leave, Damien said quietly. Before I make you leave. Alistair's smile widened. Oh, this is going to be fun. Chapter 7. The tension in the motel room was thick enough to cut when Alistair's expression shifted from predatory amusement to something far more dangerous. His head tilted slightly, as if listening to something beyond human hearing. Right on time, he murmured. Maya's blood turned to ice as the sound of vehicles filled the parking lot outside. Not just one or two, at least half a dozen engines, all cutting off simultaneously. Through the thin walls, she could hear doors slamming, heavy footsteps, the low murmur of voices coordinating positions. Alistair hadn't come alone. You brought a pack, Damien said, his voice deadly quiet. His body had gone into full alpha mode, every muscle coiled for violence, his gray eyes calculating odds and escape routes. Oh, not just any pack, Alistair replied cheerfully. Rogues. Displaced wolves who've been cast out of their territories for various infractions. They're quite loyal when you give them purpose. And I've given them a very specific purpose tonight. Maya's mind raced. Rogues were dangerous individually, pack wolves who'd lost their anchor, their moral compass. Together, they were deadly. They had nothing left to lose and everything to gain from chaos. What do you want? She asked, though she suspected she already knew. Alistair's pale eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. What I've always wanted, Little Omega. What my brother was building before those self-righteous coalition fools destroyed everything. A new kind of pack. One based on strength instead of breeding, on taking instead of asking. Kane is dead, Maya said firmly. His vision died with him. Kane was a fool who thought small, Alistair countered. He wanted to control a few dozen wolves in the middle of nowhere. I want to build something bigger. Something that will make the traditional packs obsolete. Through the window, Maya could see shapes moving in the parking lot. At least 8 men, maybe more, all carrying themselves with the loose-limbed grace of predators. They were surrounding the building. And Emma? Damien's voice was carefully controlled, but Maya could hear the wolf beneath it, barely leashed, waiting for the moment to strike. Emma is Morrison blood, Alistair said simply. My brother's legacy. She belongs with family, being raised to understand her true heritage. Not coddled by an Omega who's too weak to claim her birthright. Her birthright? Maya's voice cracked with fury. You mean her birthright as the daughter of a rapist and murderer? Alistair's expression darkened. Cain took what he wanted because he was strong enough to take it. That's not rape, little Omega, that's nature. The strong dominate the weak. It's the most basic law of our kind. It's the law of monsters, Damien snarled. Is it? Alistair's smile returned. Then what does that make you, Mr. Cross? A businessman who's built an empire by crushing smaller companies? An alpha who's gathered wealth and power by dominating others in the marketplace? The only difference between us is that I'm honest about what I am. The comparison hit like a physical blow, and Maya saw Damien flinch slightly. Alistair had done his homework. He knew exactly which psychological buttons to push. The difference, Damien said quietly, is that I don't rape women and murder innocents. Yet. Alistair's grin was feral. Give it time. Power corrupts, Mr. Cross. And you have so much power to lose. A soft knock on the door interrupted the standoff. 3 quick taps, followed by 2 more, clearly a signal. Ah, Alistair said with satisfaction. That would be confirmation that your son has been secured. Maya's world tilted. What? Oliver? Damien's voice was barely human now, more growl than speech. Insurance, Alistair explained casually. You don't think I'd walk into this situation without leverage, do you? My people are very good at what they do. Young Oliver is safe for now, but that could change very quickly if you don't cooperate. Damien moved so fast Maya barely saw it. One moment he was standing near the window, the next he had Alistair pinned against the wall, his hand around the rogue's throat. Where is my son? The words came out as a pure alpha command, backed by enough dominance to make weaker wolves submit instantly. Alistair just laughed. Stronger than I expected, he wheezed. But not strong enough. The motel room door exploded inward as 3 massive rogues burst through. Damien spun to face them, releasing Alistair, but Maya could see the calculation in his eyes. 4 against 1, with Emma and her to protect, in a confined space with no backup coming. They were trapped. Now then, Alistair said, straightening his shirt. Let's discuss terms like civilized wolves. But Maya wasn't listening anymore. Something was happening, a strange pulling sensation in her chest, as if something long dormant was finally waking up. The fear that had been paralyzing her was transforming into something else. Something that burned. Terms, she said quietly. Alistair turned to her, probably expecting tears or pleading. Instead, he found Maya standing straighter than she had in years, her brown eyes blazing with an inner fire that made him take an involuntary step back. You want to talk about strength? Maya continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. About taking what you want because you're powerful enough to take it? Maya, Damien warned, but she ignored him. I survived your brother for 6 months, Maya said, moving slowly toward Alistair. 6 months of him trying to break me, trying to convince me I was weak. Trying to make me believe I deserved what he did to me. Alistair's smile was slipping. Something in Maya's posture, in the way she was carrying herself, was triggering ancient instincts that whispered danger. And you know what I learned during those 6 months? Maya's voice was soft now, deadly soft. I learned that real strength isn't about taking what you want. It's about protecting what you love. She looked at Emma, sick and frightened in her crib, then at Damien, who was outnumbered but ready to fight anyway. And I love them, Maya said simply. Which means you're not taking them. What happened next would be talked about in pack circles for years to come. Maya threw back her head and howled, not the submissive cry of an Omega in distress, but something else entirely. Something that spoke of protective fury and maternal rage and the kind of strength that came from having nothing left to lose. The sound hit the rogues like a physical force. 2 of them actually staggered backward, their wolves recognizing something primal and dangerous in that call. But more than that, the howl carried beyond the motel room. It echoed across the city, a beacon that every wolf within 50 miles could hear and understand. Help. Family. Protect. That's impossible, Alistair breathed. Omegas can't project that kind of. He never finished the sentence. Damien used the rogue's momentary distraction to strike, moving with lethal efficiency. His fist connected with the nearest rogue's jaw with a crack that suggested broken bones. The room exploded into violence. Maya grabbed Emma from her crib, holding her daughter close as the fighting erupted around them. 3 rogues against 1 alpha in a space barely big enough for 2 people. It should have been a slaughter. But Damien was fighting like a man possessed. Every blow was precise, calculated, designed to disable rather than kill, but with enough force to make his intent clear. He was protecting his family, and nothing would stop him. Alistair hung back, letting his subordinates do the dirty work while he watched the battle with cold calculation. Impressive, he called over the sounds of combat. But ultimately futile. There are more waiting outside, and your son. A new sound cut through the chaos. Sirens. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. Alistair's expression shifted from smug to concerned. That's not possible. We disabled the local authorities. Through the window, Maya could see flashing lights, not just police cars, but black SUVs and what looked like military vehicles. A convoy that spoke of serious resources and serious backup. You forgot something, Damien said, ducking a wild swing and responding with an uppercut that dropped another rogue. I'm not just any alpha. I'm Damien Cross. The cavalry had arrived. Harrison's voice crackled through a bullhorn outside. This is private security working in cooperation with local authorities. You are surrounded. Release the hostages and surrender immediately. Alistair snarled, his composure finally cracking. You called for backup? I didn't need to, Damien replied, grappling with the last standing rogue. I have people whose job it is to know where I am and what I need. And they're very, very good at their jobs. But Alistair wasn't finished. As the sound of tactical teams positioning themselves around the building grew louder, he made a desperate play. Instead of retreating, he lunged directly for Maya and Emma. If I can't have them willingly. He never made it. The motel room door flew open again, but this time it wasn't rogues who came through. It was Oliver, followed by what looked like half the Cross Industries security team. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was that Oliver was leading them. The 6-year-old was giving clear, concise orders to grown men with military training, and they were obeying without question. Take positions by the windows, Oliver directed with a voice that carried far more authority than any child should possess. Don't let any of the bad guys escape. And somebody help my dad, he looks tired. Maya stared in amazement. Oliver's eyes had gone gold, not the brown gold of a normal wolf shift, but the pure metallic gold that marked true alpha potential. At 6 years old, he was manifesting abilities that most wolves didn't develop until their teens. Impossible, Alistair breathed, frozen in place as a dozen tactical operatives flooded into the room. Nothing's impossible when you're protecting family, Oliver said firmly. Then his adult mask slipped, and he was just a little boy again. Maya. Emma. Are you okay? I was so scared when the bad men came to the house, but then I remembered what you taught me about being brave when people you love are in trouble. Maya was crying now, clutching Emma close as she knelt down to Oliver's level. How did you? Where did you? The pack came to help, Oliver explained simply. When you howled, everyone heard it. Mrs. Patterson, the gardeners, even the drivers. They all said they had to help because you're family. And then Harrison called in the real security team, and I told them how to find you because I remembered the truck stop where we got ice cream that one time. Damien had finished subduing the last rogue and was staring at his son with a mixture of pride and concern. Alpha abilities manifesting this early usually meant the child had experienced significant trauma, the kind that forced premature development of protective instincts. Oliver, he said gently, kneeling beside the boy. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? They tried to take me, Oliver said matter-of-factly. But I bit one of them and hid in the safe room like you taught me. Then I called Harrison and told him Maya was in trouble and we had to help her. Alistair, now surrounded by armed operatives, made one last desperate attempt at psychological warfare. This isn't over, he snarled at Maya. Emma is Morrison blood. There will always be others who come for her. You can't protect her forever. But Oliver stepped forward, his young face set with determination that belonged on someone 3 times his age. Yes, she can, he said firmly. Because Emma's not just Morrison blood. She's cross-family. And we protect our family. The simple statement, delivered with absolute conviction by a 6-year-old who just orchestrated a rescue operation, broke something in Alistair's defiance. Cross-family, Maya repeated softly, the words hitting her like a revelation. Cross-family, Damien confirmed, pulling both children into his arms as Harrison directed the cleanup operation. Maya looked around the chaos of the motel room, rogues being arrested, security teams securing the scene, Oliver giving Emma a gentle hug while explaining that the bad men were going away, and realized something had fundamentally changed. Not just the immediate situation, but everything. She'd spent 3 years running from the past, convinced that her trauma made her weak, made her unworthy of love or protection or belonging. But tonight, when everything had been on the line, she'd found strength she didn't know she possessed. She'd called for help and it had come. She'd stood up to the monster who'd haunted her dreams and discovered that he was just a man, dangerous, yes, but ultimately defeatable when faced with love and loyalty and the kind of pack bonds that couldn't be broken by fear. The house, she said suddenly. Oliver said the rogues came to the house. What about Penelope? What about? Handled, Harrison said, approaching with his usual efficiency despite the circumstances. Mrs. Blackwood was present when the rogues attempted to breach the estate. She's been taken into protective custody pending investigation of her possible involvement. Maya blinked. Her involvement? The timing was suspicious, Damien said grimly. Alistair knew exactly where we lived, exactly when Oliver would be vulnerable. That kind of information doesn't come from public records. The implications hit Maya like a cold wave. Penelope hadn't just threatened to expose her past, she'd actively collaborated with the people who'd tried to destroy her family. Is she under arrest? Harrison confirmed. Along with whatever's left of Alistair's organization. It seems Mr. Morrison here wasn't as clever as he thought. We've been tracking rogue pack movements in this territory for months. His little army walked straight into a surveillance net. Alistair's face had gone ashen as the full scope of his failure became apparent. His grand plan to build a new kind of pack, to claim Emma as his heir, to continue his brother's legacy, all of it had collapsed because he'd underestimated the power of chosen family. It's over, Maya said, the words carrying the weight of absolute finality. It's over, Damien agreed, his arms tightening around his family, because that's what they were now, Maya realized. Not employer and employee, not alpha and omega following biological imperatives, but a real family forged by choice and love and the willingness to fight for each other. Emma, who had been remarkably quiet during the chaos, chose that moment to reach out tiny arms toward Alistair and say, quite clearly, no thank you. The simple rejection from a 2-year-old, delivered with the kind of polite firmness that would make Maya proud in any other circumstances, was somehow the perfect ending to the night's drama. Even some of the tactical operatives were trying not to smile. No thank you indeed, Damien murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of Emma's head. No thank you to anyone who thinks they can threaten our family. As Alistair was led away in restraints, still ranting about bloodlines and destiny and the natural order of things, Maya felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she'd been carrying for 3 years. The past was finally, truly behind them. The future was whatever they chose to make it. And for the first time since that terrible night in Montana, Maya was ready to stop running and start building something beautiful. Chapter 8. 3 weeks after the night that would forever be known in pack circles as the Morrison incident, Maya stood in the formal dining room of the Cross estate, watching a scene that 6 months ago would have been unimaginable. The long mahogany table was filled with representatives from the North American Werewolf Council, 12 alphas from various territories, their advisors, and enough accumulated power to reshape the supernatural landscape of the continent. They'd been deliberating for 2 days about Alastair Morrison's fate, and Maya could feel the weight of their decision settling over the room like morning mist. Alpha Council Chairman Benedict Thorne, a distinguished silver-haired wolf from the Canadian territories, stood at the head of the table with the formal bearing of someone who'd been mediating pack disputes for half a century. Alastair Morrison, he intoned, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of werewolf law. You stand before this council charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, assault, conspiracy to commit violence against pack members, and violation of territorial sovereignty. Alastair, flanked by 2 council guards, looked nothing like the confident predator who'd burst into that motel room. Stripped of his rogue pack, isolated from his followers, he seemed smaller somehow. Still dangerous, Maya could see the barely contained violence in his pale eyes, but definitively defeated. The evidence against you is overwhelming, Chairman Thorne continued. Multiple witnesses, physical evidence, and your own confession to planning violence against innocent pack members. Under traditional law, these crimes would be punishable by death. Maya felt Damien's hand find hers where they stood at the edge of the room. His fingers were warm, steady, grounding her as they waited for justice to be served. However, the chairman continued, Alpha Cross has requested clemency on your behalf, proposing an alternative punishment that serves both justice and the greater good of our communities. Alastair's head snapped up, confusion replacing some of the defiance in his expression. What? Chairman Thorne looked toward Damien, who stepped forward with the kind of quiet confidence that had built an empire. Alastair Morrison is a dangerous individual, Damien said, his voice carrying clearly through the formal dining room. But he's also the product of a system that failed him and his brother. Killing him would be justice, but it wouldn't prevent others from following the same path. What are you suggesting? Asked Alpha Rebecca Winters from the Pacific Northwest Territory. Permanent banishment to the Alaskan Wilderness Preserve. Complete severing of pack bonds and alpha abilities. Mandatory psychological rehabilitation under council supervision. Damien's gray eyes were steady on Alastair's face. He lives, but he lives as a lone wolf with no power to hurt others. And his rehabilitation becomes a case study to help us identify and prevent future rogue situations before they escalate. The murmur that ran through the assembled alphas was thoughtful rather than dismissive. Maya felt a surge of pride for the man beside her, even in matters of justice for someone who'd threatened his family. Damien was thinking beyond revenge to long-term solutions. Alastair's face had gone through a spectrum of emotions. Confusion, rage, and finally something that might have been grudging respect. You're sparing me, he said finally. I'm giving you a chance to become something other than your brother's shadow, Damien replied. What you do with that chance is up to you. Chairman Thorne nodded slowly. The council will deliberate this proposal. In the meantime, Alastair Morrison will remain in council custody. As the guards escorted Alastair from the room, he paused beside Maya. For a moment, she tensed, but there was no threat in his posture anymore, just exhaustion and perhaps the faintest glimmer of something that might eventually become redemption. Your daughter, he said quietly. She deserves better than the Morrison legacy. I hope she gets it. Then he was gone, leaving Maya with tears she hadn't expected and a sense of closure she'd never thought possible. The council session broke for lunch, and Maya found herself alone with Damien in his study. Emma was napping upstairs while Oliver was at school, giving them a rare moment of quiet in what had been 3 weeks of constant activity. You didn't have to ask for clemency, Maya said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. After what he threatened, what he tried to take. I did it for you, Damien said simply. And for Emma. That little girl shouldn't grow up knowing that people died because of her existence, even if they deserved it. Maya's heart did that fluttering thing it had been doing a lot lately when Damien showed her yet another reason why she'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with him. There's something else, Damien continued, and something in his tone made Maya look up sharply. He seemed nervous. Damien Cross, who commanded boardrooms and dominated business negotiations without breaking a sweat, was actually nervous. What is it? Instead of answering, Damien moved around the desk and dropped to one knee beside her chair. Maya's breath caught as he pulled out a small velvet box. "Maya Christine Reeves," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know we've been through hell together. I know this situation started as a business arrangement and became something neither of us expected. But I need you to know that what I'm about to ask has nothing to do with convenience or pack politics or what anyone else thinks we should do." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I'm asking because I love you. Because you've made me a better man and a better father. Because when I imagine my future, every single version of it has you and Emma in it." Damien opened the box, revealing a ring that was both elegant and sturdy, much like the woman he was offering it to. "Will you marry me? Not because you need protection or security, but because you want to build a life with me?" Maya stared at the ring, a brilliant cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars, and felt her world shift on its axis. Not because of the proposal itself, which she'd been hoping for even if she'd been too afraid to admit it, but because of the way he'd asked. No assumptions. No alpha commands or overwhelming dominance. Just a man asking the woman he loved to choose him. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, absolutely yes." The smile that spread across Damien's face was brighter than the diamond as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made specifically for her. Which, Maya realized as she looked at it more closely, it probably had been. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked. "Since the night you came back from the motel," Damien admitted, pulling her into his lap. "I realized that I'd been thinking about this all wrong. I'd been so focused on protecting you, on providing for you, that I forgot the most important part." "Which was?" "Asking what you wanted," Damien said simply. "Making sure you had a real choice." Maya kissed him then, pouring 3 years of fear and loneliness and desperate hope into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I choose you," Maya said against his lips. "I choose us. I choose this family we've built. Even with all the complications. The pack politics, the media attention, the fact that my life comes with security details and board meetings and social obligations." Maya laughed. "Damien, I spent 3 years running from shadows and living in crappy apartments. I think I can handle some board meetings. What about a proper mating ceremony? With the pack, the formal bonding ritual, all the traditional elements?" Maya considered this. A year ago, the thought of standing in front of a crowd of werewolves and formally declaring her pack allegiance would have terrified her. But now, "I want Oliver to be part of it," she said. "And Emma, even if she won't remember it. This isn't just about us, it's about the family we've chosen." Damien's smile was soft and proud. "Oliver is going to be over the moon. He's been asking me for weeks when I was going to make it official with you." "Smart boy. He gets that from his mother," Damien said, and the casual way he referred to Maya in that role made her heart skip. 2 months later, on a perfect October evening when the leaves were turning gold and the air held the crisp promise of winter, Maya stood in the garden of the Cross estate wearing a dress that had been designed specifically for her by one of the most exclusive designers in the country. It wasn't a traditional wedding dress. Too much white would have been inappropriate for a werewolf mating ceremony. Instead, it was a deep forest green that brought out her eyes, with intricate silver embroidery that caught the light of the torches placed throughout the garden. The guest list was an interesting mix: pack members from their territory, business associates who'd become genuine friends, and even some of the Cross Industries employees who'd become part of their extended family over the years. Mrs. Patterson had tears in her eyes as she supervised the catering, muttering about how this was the happiest day the estate had seen in decades. But the most important guests were the smallest ones. Oliver stood beside Damien at the altar, wearing a miniature version of his father's formal suit and a grin that could have powered the city. In his hands, he carried a small velvet pillow with rings that he'd helped choose. Emma, now almost 3 and walking steadily, was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously, dropping rose petals with the kind of focused concentration that made the assembled guests smile. Every few steps, she would look up and wave at someone she recognized, her face beaming with joy. Maya's walk down the aisle was accompanied not by traditional wedding music, but by a song Oliver had chosen, something about families being made of love rather than blood that perfectly captured what this day represented. When she reached the altar, Damien's eyes were bright with tears he wasn't trying to hide. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "You look pretty good yourself," Maya replied, taking in his formal black suit and the silver ceremonial torque that marked him as an alpha of significant standing. The ceremony itself was a blend of traditional werewolf rituals and personal touches that made it uniquely theirs. When it came time for the pack bonding, Maya felt the moment her individual wolf spirit merged with the cross-pack structure, not as a subordinate joining a hierarchy, but as an equal partner in something larger than herself. But the moment that brought tears to every eye in the garden came when Oliver stepped forward during the family blessing portion of the ceremony. "I want to say something," he announced with the kind of serious dignity that only children could manage. The officiant, an elderly pack elder who'd known Damien's family for generations, smiled and gestured for Oliver to continue. "Maya," Oliver said, looking directly at her with those wise green eyes. "You're already my mom in my heart. But I want to make it official. Will you adopt me for real? So Emma can be my real sister and we can all have the same last name?" The request hit Maya like a physical blow. In all her planning for this day, she hadn't expected this moment, hadn't dared to hope that Oliver would want to formalize what they'd all felt for months. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, dropping to his level. "I would be honored to adopt you. I love you so much." "I love you too, Mom," Oliver said simply, and the word that Maya had been afraid to claim hung in the air like a benediction. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden as Damien joined them, pulling all three of his family members into an embrace that felt like coming home. The reception was everything Maya had dreamed of and nothing she'd expected. There was dancing under the stars, toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious, and enough food to feed a small army. Emma charmed everyone by insisting on dancing with every adult who would lift her up, while Oliver gave a speech about how families were made of people who chose to love each other. But the moment Maya would remember forever came near midnight, when most of the guests had gone home and the cleanup was winding down. She and Damien had escaped to the gazebo overlooking the garden, needing a few moments of quiet together. "Mrs. Cross," Damien said, testing out her new name. "I like the sound of that," Maya admitted, settling into his arms. "Though I'm keeping Reeves professionally. Maya Cross Reeves has a nice ring to it." "Whatever makes you happy," Damien said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I just want you to be happy." "I am happy," Maya said, and realized it was completely true. "For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I want to be." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the last of the party wind down. In the distance, they could see Oliver and Emma inside the house, both fast asleep on the couch while Mrs. Patterson cleaned up around them. "There is one more thing," Maya said eventually. "What's that?" Maya turned in his arms, studying his face in the moonlight. "Remember how I was sick a few weeks ago? The stomach bug that kept me in bed for 2 days? Of course. You scared the hell out of me." "It wasn't a stomach bug," Maya said softly. Damien went very still. "What was it?" Instead of answering with words, Maya reached into her small evening bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Medical letterhead, official stamps, results that had arrived just that morning. Damien read it twice before the information seemed to penetrate. When he looked up at her, his expression was a mixture of wonder and joy and something that might have been terror. "You're pregnant," he said. "I'm pregnant," Maya confirmed. "About 8 weeks along. Due in early summer. A baby." Damien's voice was soft with amazement. "Our baby." "Our baby," Maya agreed. How do you feel about that?" Instead of answering immediately, Damien cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of promises and hopes and a future bright with possibility. "I feel like the luckiest man alive," he said finally. "I feel like I've been given everything I never knew I wanted. Even though it means diapers and midnight feedings and a toddler and a 6-year-old and a newborn all at the same time." Damien laughed. "Especially because of that." Maya, a year ago I had a beautiful house and a successful business and a son I loved but didn't know how to reach. I had everything money could buy and nothing that really mattered. He gestured toward the house where their children were sleeping, toward the garden where they just pledged their lives to each other, toward the life they'd built together from the ashes of their individual pain. Now I have a family. A real family, built on choice and love and the kind of trust that doesn't break when things get difficult. His gray eyes were bright in the moonlight. I have you. I have Oliver and Emma and now this new little one. I have everything that matters. Maya felt tears of pure happiness sliding down her cheeks. I love you, Damien Cross. I love you too, Maya Cross-Reeves. More than I thought possible. They stayed in the gazebo until dawn, talking about nursery colors and whether they wanted to know the baby's gender and how to tell the children and a dozen other details that suddenly seemed vitally important. As the sun crested the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, they walked hand in hand back to the house. Through the large windows, they could see their children still asleep on the couch, Oliver with one protective arm around Emma, both of them peaceful and safe. Look at that, Maya said softly. What? Our pack, Maya said simply. 3 months ago, we were all alone. Oliver was lonely, Emma and I were hiding, you were going through the motions of a life that didn't really satisfy you. And now? Now we're a family, Damien finished. Not because of biology or pack law or social expectations. Because we chose each other. Because we chose each other, Maya agreed. They stood there for a long moment, watching their children sleep while the sunrise painted everything in golden light. 3 adults and 2 children who'd found each other against all odds, who'd survived trauma and threats and their own fears to build something beautiful. A pack forged not by blood or obligation, but by love. Ready to go wake them up and start our first day as a officially married family? Damien asked. Maya smiled, her hand drifting unconsciously to her still flat stomach where their newest family member was growing. Ready, she said. Together, they walked into their future, imperfect, complicated, and absolutely perfect in every way that mattered. And in the distance, the sun continued to rise over the estate where 4 hearts had learned to beat as one, with room for one more small heartbeat that would complete their circle. The Cross Pack was home. The end. Epilogue, 3 years later. Maya Cross-Reeves stood in the kitchen of their renovated estate, watching through the large windows as her family enjoyed a perfect Saturday morning in early spring. The garden was in full bloom, and the sound of children's laughter drifted through the open doors like music. Oliver, now 9 and showing every sign of becoming the kind of alpha who led through wisdom rather than force, was patiently teaching 5-year-old Emma how to throw a baseball. His early manifestation of alpha abilities had stabilized beautifully under the guidance of pack counselors, developing into natural leadership skills and an almost supernatural ability to calm others in stressful situations. Like this, Oliver said, demonstrating the proper stance. Remember what Dad taught us about following through. Emma, who had grown into a confident little girl with her mother's determination and an infectious laugh, nodded seriously and wound up for another attempt. When she managed to throw the ball in a reasonably straight line, she jumped up and down with excitement. Maya, did you see? I threw it good. I saw, sweetheart. That was excellent. Maya called back, automatically bouncing the 18-month-old boy in her arms who was trying to climb down and join his siblings. Gabriel Cross had his father's gray eyes and his mother's stubborn streak, combined with enough energy to power a small city. At 18 months, he was already showing signs of the same early development that had marked Oliver, though in Gabriel's case it manifested as an uncanny ability to understand what people needed emotionally. Down, Mama, Gabriel demanded, squirming in her arms. Play with Oliver and Emma. In a minute, sweetheart. Let Mama finish making lunch. The truth was, Maya wasn't just making lunch, she was savoring the peaceful moment. 3 years had brought so many changes, most of them wonderful, but the quiet family moments were still the ones she treasured most. Need help? Damien's voice came from behind her, accompanied by the familiar warmth of his presence. Maya leaned back against his chest as his arms came around her and Gabriel. Almost done. How did the call with the council go? Better than expected, Damien said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Alistair's rehabilitation program is being expanded to 3 more facilities. The preliminary results are so promising that they're considering it as a standard alternative to exile for certain types of offenses. Maya felt a familiar mixture of pride and amazement. 2 years ago, Alistair Morrison had been a monster who'd threatened everything she held dear. Today, he was living in a supervised facility in Alaska, working with PAC psychologists and slowly, carefully, learning to build a life without violence. The transformation hadn't been easy or quick. There had been setbacks, moments when everyone involved questioned whether redemption was possible. But gradually, painstakingly, Alistair had begun to shed the anger and entitlement that had driven him to follow his brother's path. His first letter to Maya had arrived 6 months ago, a simple, careful apology that took responsibility for his actions without asking for forgiveness. Maya had cried when she read it, not from sadness but from the recognition that healing was possible even in the most broken places. Any word on when he might be eligible for supervised release? Maya asked. Another 2 years, minimum. And only if he continues to progress. Damien's arms tightened slightly around her. The council is being very careful about this. One success doesn't mean the program will work for everyone. But it's a start. It's a start, Damien agreed. Gabriel had grown impatient with the adult conversation and was making increasingly determined efforts to escape. Maya finally set him down, watching as he toddled toward the open doors with the single-minded determination that characterized everything he did. What about Penelope? Maya asked quietly. Damien's expression darkened slightly. Penelope Blackwood's fall from PAC Grace had been swift and complete. Her collaboration with Alistair's rogue PAC had been seen as the worst kind of betrayal, using PAC politics and personal vendettas to endanger innocent lives. Still in PAC prison, still refusing to participate in any rehabilitation programs, Damien said. Her father formally disowned her last month. The Blackwood PAC has requested that her sentence be extended indefinitely. Maya felt a pang of something that might have been sympathy. Penelope had made terrible choices, but she was also a cautionary tale about what happened when pride and entitlement were allowed to fester unchecked. Maybe she'll come around eventually, Maya said. Maybe, Damien said, though his tone suggested he wasn't holding his breath. Harrison thinks she's too invested in being right to ever admit she was wrong. Harrison had become more than an assistant over the years. He was family, the children's honorary uncle, and the person who somehow managed to keep their increasingly complicated lives running smoothly. His loyalty during the Morrison crisis had earned him Damien's eternal gratitude and a promotion that made him more of a partner than an employee. Speaking of Harrison, Maya said, did he confirm the arrangements for next week? All set. The adoption papers will be finalized Monday morning. Oliver will officially become Oliver Cross-Reeves, and then we're taking everyone to Disney World for a week of completely irresponsible fun. Maya grinned. Oliver's adoption had been a long process, complicated by PAC law and the need to ensure that all the legal requirements were met. But finally, the little boy who'd been her son in every way that mattered would have the legal documentation to prove it. He's been counting down the days, Maya said. So have I, Damien admitted. I know it's just paperwork, but it makes it official, Maya finished. Makes him legally ours, not just emotionally. They were interrupted by a crash from the garden, followed by Gabriel's delighted laughter and Emma's voice saying, oh. Through the window, they could see that Gabriel had somehow managed to knock over the small table where they'd been keeping the baseball equipment. Oliver was already helping him up while Emma gathered the scattered balls. I should probably, Maya started. I've got it, Damien said, already heading for the door. You finish lunch. The natives are getting restless. Maya watched him stride into the garden, immediately transforming from serious alpha businessman to patient father as he scooped Gabriel into his arms and ruffled Emma's hair. The sight never got old, this man who commanded boardrooms and influenced policy playing peekaboo with a toddler and teaching a 5-year-old the finer points of baseball. Her phone buzzed with a text, and Maya smiled when she saw the sender, Dr. Sarah Hartwell, the pediatric psychologist who'd been working with Emma to help her process the changes in her life. Emma's progress report is excellent. No signs of trauma from the Morrison incident, healthy attachment patterns, and her language development is ahead of schedule. Whatever you and Damien are doing, keep it up. See you next month for her final session. Maya felt a surge of relief and pride. Emma's resilience had been remarkable, but Maya had worried about the long-term effects of that terrible night. Knowing that her daughter was thriving, that the love and stability they'd built was enough to overcome the chaos of her early years, was worth more than any professional success. And speaking of professional success, Maya glanced at the corner of the kitchen where her laptop sat, displaying the manuscript she'd been working on for the past year. Finding Home, A Guide to Building Chosen Family, was nearly finished, and her publisher was already expressing enthusiasm about the advanced chapters. The book had started as a way to process her own experiences, but it had evolved into something larger, a resource for other displaced wolves, for anyone who'd lost their original pack and needed guidance on building new connections. The initial print run was modest, but Maya suspected it would find its audience. Writing had become her unexpected passion, a way to channel her experiences into something helpful for others. She still helped with Cross Industries Charitable Foundation, still participated in PAC council meetings, but the writing was hers, a way to build meaning from everything she'd survived. Mama. Emma's voice carried from the garden. Gabriel threw my ball over the fence. Maya looked out to see Gabriel grinning proudly while Emma stood with her hands on her hips in a perfect imitation of Maya's "I'm not angry, just disappointed" pose. Even at 18 months, Gabriel had a gift for creating chaos with the best of intentions. "I'll get it, Oliver said, already heading for the gate that led to the neighboring property. The neighbors were the Hendersons, an elderly human couple who'd become unofficial grandparents to the Cross children. Mrs. Henderson had a standing invitation to join them for Sunday dinners, and Mr. Henderson had taught Oliver how to build model airplanes. They were proof that family could extend beyond blood and species. Maya's phone rang, and she smiled when she saw the caller ID, Mrs. Patterson. "Hello, dear," came the familiar voice of their former housekeeper, now enjoying a well-earned retirement in Florida. "How are my babies?" "Growing like weeds," Maya said warmly. Gabriel took his first real steps yesterday, Emma learned to ride a two-wheeler, and Oliver lost another tooth. "And how are you and Damien?" "Happy," Maya said simply. "Really, truly happy." "Good. You deserve it, child. You all deserve it." Mrs. Patterson's voice was soft with affection. "Tell the children Grandma Pat will see them soon. I'm flying up for Oliver's adoption ceremony." After they hung up, Maya looked around the kitchen, their kitchen, in their home, filled with the comfortable chaos of a real family. The refrigerator was covered with Gabriel's finger paintings and Emma's school pictures and Oliver's honor roll certificates. The counter held a pile of permission slips for field trips and reminders about dentist appointments and invitations to birthday parties. It was beautifully, messily, perfectly ordinary. And it was everything Maya had never dared to dream of during those dark years of running and hiding. "Lunch ready?" Damien asked, returning with all three children in tow. Gabriel was riding on his shoulders, Emma was holding one hand while chattering about something that had happened at preschool, and Oliver was carrying the rescued baseball with the air of someone who'd successfully completed an important mission. "Just about," Maya said, setting plates around the kitchen table. "Everyone wash hands." The organized chaos of getting three children fed and settled was a well-practiced routine. Gabriel needed his food cut into tiny pieces and his sippy cup filled with the organic milk he preferred. Emma required her sandwich cut into triangles, not squares, and at least 3 different vegetables she could pick at and mostly ignore. Oliver needed enough food to fuel his growing preteen body and a drink that wasn't too cold but not too warm either. As they ate, the children shared the highlights of their morning. Emma had successfully climbed to the top of the jungle gym for the first time. Gabriel had said a new word that sounded suspiciously like trouble, which was probably accurate. Oliver had finished reading a chapter book about dragons that he wanted to discuss with anyone who would listen. It was ordinary and precious and exactly the kind of life Maya had thought was impossible for someone like her. Oh, Damien said suddenly, I almost forgot. I heard back from the Silverstone pack. Maya looked up sharply. The Silverstone pack was what remained of her original pack from Montana, the survivors who'd rebuilt their community after Kane Morrison's attack. And? They want to extend a formal invitation for you to visit. No pressure, no obligations. Just, if you ever want to see the place again, to connect with the people who remember you, the door is open. Maya was quiet for a moment. 3 years ago, the thought of returning to Montana would have sent her into a panic. But now? Would you come with me? She asked. Of course. All of us, if you want. Make it a family trip. Maya looked around the table at her children, all of her children, and felt something settle into place. She was strong enough now to face her past, secure enough in her present to risk reopening old wounds. I think I'd like that, she said. Someday. When Gabriel's a little older. Oliver perked up. Can we see where you grew up, Maya? And meet the people who knew you when you were little? Maybe, sweetheart. Would you like that? Yeah. I want to know all about your family before us. The simple acceptance in his voice, the assumption that Maya's past was just another part of their family story rather than something shameful to hide, brought tears to Maya's eyes. After lunch, as the afternoon stretched lazily ahead of them, the family migrated to the living room. Gabriel settled down for his nap while Emma read picture books to her stuffed animals. Oliver curled up with his dragon book, and Damien spread out some work papers, though Maya noticed he spent more time watching the children than actually reading. Maya pulled out her laptop, intending to work on her book, but found herself simply observing the scene instead. The sunlight streaming through the windows, the soft sounds of contentment, the sense of peace that came from being exactly where you belonged. Her phone buzzed with a text from Harrison. Preliminary sales figures for the Foundation's new mentorship program are excellent. You were right about connecting displaced wolves with established families. Another Maya Cross-Reeves success story. The mentorship program had been Maya's idea, pairing lone wolves and displaced families with stable pack households who could provide guidance and support. It was growing faster than anyone had anticipated, proving that there were more people looking for connection than the traditional pack structure could accommodate. Good news? Damien asked, noticing her smile. The mentorship program is expanding to 12 more territories, Maya said. Harrison thinks we'll need to hire additional coordinators by the end of the year. I'm proud of you, Damien said simply. For what? For taking your pain and turning it into something that helps other people. For building something beautiful from the worst experience of your life. Maya looked around the room again, at Oliver reading peacefully, at Emma creating elaborate stories for her toys, at Gabriel sleeping with complete trust in their protection, at Damien watching over all of them with quiet contentment. We built something beautiful, she corrected. All of us together. As evening approached and the children began their bedtime routines, Maya and Damien found themselves in the garden again, drawn by the memory of all the important conversations they'd had in this space. Any regrets? Damien asked, pulling her close as they looked up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. Maya considered the question seriously. 3 years ago, she'd been a frightened Omega running from ghosts, convinced that she was too broken to deserve love or happiness. Tonight, she was a wife, a mother, a published author, a pack leader, and a woman who'd learned that healing was possible even from the deepest wounds. Just one, she said finally. Damien stiffened slightly. What's that? Maya smiled and turned in his arms. I regret that it took us so long to find each other. Think of all the time we wasted being unhappy when we could have been together. Damien's answering smile was brilliant in the starlight. Well, we'll just have to make up for lost time. I love you, Damien Cross. I love you too, Maya Cross-Reeves. More every day. From the house behind them came the sound of children's voices as Oliver helped Emma brush her teeth and Gabriel babbled happily in his crib. Soon they would all be tucked in bed, and Maya and Damien would have their quiet evening time to talk about their days and plan for tomorrow. But for now, they stood together in their garden, surrounded by the life they'd built from love and choice and the courage to believe in second chances. Their pack was complete. Their family was home. And every sunrise brought new possibilities for joy. Thank you for listening. Like, share and subscribe for more.